Project Management Office, Flood Control Management Center, Department of Public Works and Highways. Okay. And of course, from the local government, we have representing Governor Manuel Mamba, Forester Robert E. Adap, Provincial in Penro, Officer of the Province of Cagayan, and Chief of Staff of Governor Mamba, Attorney Maria Rosario Mamba Villaflor. And of course, we wish to acknowledge the presence of Secretary Simatu, also of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And we have representing Governor Albano III, Mr. Jeronimo Cabacan, Provincial Environment and Natural Resources Officer of the Province of Isabela. And of course, representing Governor Inares and Mayor Inares is Dr. Casimiro A. Inares III, former mayor of Antipolo City and former governor of Rizal. And Environment Natural Resources Officer, Engineer Eduardo Dorado. And from the civil society organization, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, represented by Dr. Mary Christine Baleva, External Relation and Policy Specialist. From the Society of Filipino Forester, Forester Tommy T. Valdez, President. And from the Protected Area Superintendents, Forester Isidro El Mercado, PhD, Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Landscape, and Project Manager Masungi Geo Reserve, part of the Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Area, Miss Ann Dumalyang. That's all. Okay. So, our agenda at today's public hearing is the proposed Senate Resolution number 581 that I filed, which seeks an inquiry in aid of legislation on the alleged denuded state of forests and watersheds, as well as the apparent heavy siltation on rivers and tributaries, which largely contributed to the massive flooding in Luzon, particularly in Marikina, in NCR, Rizal of Region 4A, and in Cagayan and Isabela in Region 2 during the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. We also take into consideration those 5 other resolutions that were secondly referred to the committee, namely Proposed Resolution number 570 by Senator Revilla, 571 by Senator Hontiveros, 573 by Senator Marcos, 575 by Senator Pangilinan, and 579 by Senator De Lima. And of course, the one referred to the Committee on Energy about NGCP, filed by Senator Binay. As a backgrounder, the Philippines is located along the typhoon belt in the Pacific Ocean, particularly the Western Pacific Basin, whose almost year-round warm waters make it a perfect breeding ground for tropical storms. And so, due to our country's location, an average of 20 typhoons enter the Philippine area of responsibility each year, more than anywhere else in the world. Typhoon Ulysses, which is actually typhoon number 21 for the current year, and which landed on the Philippines on November 11 and 12, was considered the worst typhoon to hit the Philippines so far this year. It came after 3 other consecutive typhoons in November, namely Rolly, Shoni, and Tonyo. Ulysses has a wind strength of storm signal number 3, and it has severely hit the country and caused a lot of damage in several areas of Luzon. The typhoon's devastating effects include the massive flooding in Marikina, Rizal, Isabela, and Cagayan. During the onslaught of Ulysses, Marikina's river water level rose to 22 meters during the storm, higher than the 20.5-meter level it reached during Typhoon Ondoy in 2009. Marikina's low-lying residential areas have been flooded, reaching, if not surpassing, second-story levels of many houses and resulted in the evacuation of at least 3,000 families. In Cagayan province, the continuous rain during Ulysses brought about landslides as well as unprecedented colossal flooding that submerged numerous houses, which was also aggravated by the nearby Magat Dam released water, which was already at spilling level in order to prevent the dam from breaking or collapsing. The flooding and landslides have been attributed to our denuded forest and watershed, particularly those barely covering the Sierra Madre mountain range that stretches from Cagayan province in the north and down to Quezon province. The muddy quality of the water that flooded Marikina and Cagayan is proof that the Sierra Madre forest and the Marikina River Basin protected area are already so denuded that they do not anymore retain soil water and prevent erosion. The Sierra Madre is supposed to serve as a barrier to typhoons coming from the Pacific Ocean. However, with an insufficient forest cover, it appears that the Sierra Madre became funnels that collected rainwater and dumped them on overwhelmed river and waterways as well as the Marikina watershed. The apparent silted condition of the rivers and tributaries in the flooded areas did little in containing the rainwater that flowed from the mountains and so may have contributed to the rapid rise of flood waters as well. We have known all along, as science has demonstrated to us, that an abundant forest helps forest soil absorb and retain rainwater. Forests are natural mechanisms that regulate the release and flow of rainwater from hills and mountains. They help prevent rivers and waterways from being overwhelmed. Put simply, an abundant forest helps prevent flooding. Deforestation is thus a major problem caused by illegal logging, quarrying, unregulated and open pit mining, and slash and burn agriculture, among others. Deforestation continues to threaten the forest cover of the country, hereby resulting to a reduced protection from the effect of natural disasters. For as long as we do not do nothing to conserve and protect our forests, the Filipino people will continually suffer from the destructive effects of typhoon. The effect will keep on escalating over the years as the Sierra Madre as well as other mountain hills continue with its unabated deforestation. We have seen the effect of Typhoon Ondoy more than 10 years ago. We have seen them again, perhaps worse than before, with Ulysses. We are supposed to learn the lessons of our past experiences, but have done nothing significant to be able to say that we have truly learned. For instance, the upper Marikina River Basin protected landscape has been made a protected area under the NIPAS for the purpose of protecting the forest cover there, including the Masungi Georeserve. This protected area is supposed to be undergoing strict conservation interventions, yet it is allegedly being subjected to encroachment by entities involved in illegal logging and quarrying appreciation operations. The destruction in lives and properties caused by floods during recent typhoon underscores the necessity to protect and conserve the country's forests and watershed, as well as to maintain our rivers and its tributaries in good condition. And according to the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, the restoration and conservation of Philippine existing forests from rainforest to mangrove forest should be at the core of the country's disaster risk reduction plan. We wish to inform everybody that the Northern Sierra Madre Natural Park was declared a protected area by legislation on April 22, 2011 through RA number 9125 with an area of 319,513 hectares. The Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Landscape was declared as a protected area under the expanded NIPAS Act of 94 Protected Areas or Over the Philippines, sponsored by yours truly on June 22, 2018, with an area of 26,126 hectares. But as early as 2011, Presidential Proclamation number 296 by President Aquino was issued, declaring the Marikina Watershed Reservation in Rizal as a protected area after Typhoon Ondoy in 2009. It was renamed Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Landscape when it was legislated under the expanded NIPAS Act of 2019. I relate very much to this because just like the Upper Marikina River Basin, our Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, which was declared a protected area by Presidential Proclamation 1412 dated April 22, 2007 by President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, which was later legislated as a protected area in the expanded NIPAS Act of 2018. A watershed is an area of land that drains or sheds water into a specific body of water. And in this case of Marikina River, in this case, it goes to the Marikina Rivers, Pasig River, Laguna de Bay, and Manila Bay. We have the same experience in Las Piñas City. Our equivalent of Upper Marikina watershed is the Upper Cavite towns, which rivers flowing to Zapote River going onto Manila Bay. We established our Zapote River Drive to be able to maintain our Zapote River deep, clean, and as wide as possible into Manila Bay. We fought the reclamation of Manila Bay, where our river will flow. If we allow the reclamation of Manila Bay, the water from Upper Cavite will stay with us and we will have 8 meters of flooding equivalent to 3-story building. If we didn't do anything about our problem, we will have the same problem as Marikina City. Then we can say that life in our city is what we make it to be. Okay. With that backdrop, the purpose of our inquiry today is to determine the following. What is the current state of the forest and watershed within the vicinities of the areas heavily inundated by the flood? Marikina City, the province of Rizal, and the provinces of Isabela and Cagayan. What are the existing environmental laws, policies, and supposed programs meant to protect and conserve the country's forest cover and waterways, and whether these laws and policy are being efficiently implemented? If there are violations of such environmental laws and policies, what are being done to hold the perpetrators responsible? And who are the responsible government agencies and officials who are supposed to flag such violations? And moving forward, what then should be the environmental intervention and other related initiatives, whether by legislation, administration, or enforcement, that should be put in place in order to mitigate, if not altogether avoid, the devastating effects of natural disasters such as the one brought by Typhoon Ulysses. I wish to disclose that the Committee on Public Works, chaired by Senator Pacquiao, has earlier conducted on November 25 a public hearing on flooding due to Ulysses, as well as on the bills about rainwater harvesting. The hearing on the Committee on Public Works centered on the gray infrastructure needed, meaning the human-engineered solution that often involve concrete and steel, such as the construction of dams, dikes, tunnels, floodgates, spillway projects, and other man-made structures. In our hearing today, we expect to be informed of the green infrastructure needed, referring to an approach that protects and restores natural ecosystem such as forests, watershed, wetlands, and waterways that provide protection to the communities near them and mitigate, if not altogether, prevent devastating effects of calamities to this community. We also welcome President Duterte issuance of Executive Order number 120 dated November 18, 2020, which refers to the creation of Build Back Better Task Force to strengthen the rehabilitation and recovery efforts in typhoon hit area. The task force, jointly chaired by both the Secretaries of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and the Department of Public Works and Highway, is tasked to ensure whole of government implementation and monitoring of post-disaster recovery and rehabilitation efforts of the national government in typhoon-affected area. The task force has for its member officials of key government agencies whose roles are crucial to effect efficient implementation of rehabilitation. With this, we are looking forward to a productive discussion on the topic and issues with our resource person. Before we hear the presentation of DNR Secretary and the chairperson of the Build Back Better Task Force, Royce Imatu, we will first recognize our senators present if they wish to deliver opening statement as well. So we recognize Senator Risa Hontiveros.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, gusto ko pong pasalamatan ang komite sa pagsama ng resolution ko, Resolution 571, among the resolutions to be heard today. Isa po sa aking hina-highlight ay yung intergenerational measures laban sa pagbabaha. At tampok po dito ang usapin kay Inang Kalikasan. There are many questions that are already important considering the climate vulnerability of our country. How effective are our laws in protecting our watersheds and our forests? What have we done against illegal activities in protected areas? Bakit talamak ang logging and quarrying sa kabila ng mga batas na nagbabawal dito? These questions become even more urgent given the recent wave of disasters that has hit our country. And I look forward also to this hearing, Madam Chair. Salamat po at magandang umaga po sa inyo, sa mga kasamang senador, kay Secretary at sa lahat po ng ating mga resource person. Salamat po, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Risa. If the other senators would want to make an opening statement, no more. So we will ask now DNR Secretary and the chairperson of the Build Back Better Task Force, Royce Imatu, to make the DNR presentation. Okay. Secretary Simato, mag-unmute ka yata. Hindi namin nadidinig.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
That's good.
Before I request Yasek Kona to make the presentation, I would like to take advantage of this hearing to say my appreciation because really things should be made faster in order for us to perform really our mandate. And I really would like to express our gratitude for this hearing. Yes, I was really designated as co-chair of the Executive Order 120 by the President, and we had 22 member agencies initially, but I requested for the additional Cabinet Secretary to join us. Well, as soon as I received the order, Madam Chair, I hit the ground running. I went to Ligaraw and I saw the river from Laguna Vizcaya down to Isabela, then to Cagayan, down to Pari. Nakita ko po yung river myself. Talagang napaka, masabi lang, hindi na makokontrol ng direksyon ng tubig kasi iba-iba na yung galaw. So that ang aking isang recommendation na deposit sa dredging effort. In fact, the information the senators what we can do now, and in fact, we are already mobilizing our assets. And waiting for the construction from big construction companies, dredging companies. I requested the Department of Public Works and Highways to mobilize yung ating assets, government assets, and also I also requested the Department of Defense for the participation of the military assets. Ito yung ginagamit na at least na mga sandbars na mag-build up dyan sa gitna ng Cagayan River. Ito isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit hindi mag-flow ng gusto ng river noon. Kaya nag-overflow yung mga rivers na punta sa mga flooded area at nag-flood din sa mga communities, including to Ligaraw City mismo. So, we are mobilizing, and in fact, if we can move within the week or 2 weeks, pupunta sa 19, we identify the DPWS region, so to identify yung 19 sandbar sa gitna ng river ng malaking bagay na naging obstacle sa pagdagdagan ng river. So we will be doing this immediately. In fact, we are planning already to move them this equipment to the area. 19 po ito mula Isabela hanggang sa baba. Na sandbar, talagang nag-build up na talaga yung kita dyan sa gitna ng river. So ito po yung ginagawa namin dito sa Cagayan River. Pangalala po, yung ginagawa sa Marikina River. Nagpunta rin ako dito sa Marikina River. Myself, nakita ko yung kausap ko ng river and binisita ko rin ng daanan ng river. Nakita ko, explain niya sa akin na in 6 hours, nag-build up yung tubig na umakyat ng siguro umabot ng second floor po, umakyat na ako sa mga bahay doon sa President subdivision. Nakita ko yung talagang pumasok ang mga putik sa ibabaw sa second floor pa. So, ganun po, explain din sa akin that after 6 hours, nag-receive yung idanan ng tubig. So, ganun talaga ang kabilis na pag-build up at saka kabilis rin na pag-receive dyan sa Marikina River. Nakita ko po rin na may area doon na mayroon nag-attempt na mag-reclamation dyan. So, kinuha ko yung picture ng Maraming River noong 2 years ago, kinumpare ko yung picture na yun, nakita natin yung pag-intrude ng build-up ng mga sumikip ang river ng Marikina. So, kailangan malis yung mga may dagdag doon, and these are the proposed reclamation data. So, I will be really doing what we have to do. Talagang inagdan namin yan kahit yung mga may nagre-reclaim na yan. So ito po yung ginagawa namin po. I also suspended the operations of the quarry dyan po sa ibabaw. And while there were some complaints na wala nang mga magamit na aggregates, but we have really to do, kailangan what we have to do. So ito po yung aming ginagawa po na ngayon. In the Bicol region po naman, nakasama po dito sa aming task force, ay undergoing dredging po ng mga rivers na nag-suffer noon several typhoons ago na may mga namatay pa dyan sa Ginubatan, Albay. So ito po yung ginagawa namin ngayon, And in fact, Your Honors, I'm meeting now the task force here. Kasama po yung mga representatives ng 24 agencies. Nandito po ngayon sa conference room ng DENR. So nakikinig rin po sila ngayon dito sa ating hearing, and maganda naman na marinig nila yung ating pag-usapan dito kasi talagang kailangan talaga natin maipaano rin sa mga regions at importante po itong hearing na ito. So with that, Madam Senators, I would like to request Yosek Puna to make the presentation that we call it the green infrastructures as required by Senator Villar. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Can you give us a written report of what you said so we can read it again clearly? Because the first part we were not able to understand very well, especially what you are doing in Cagayan and Marikina River. Can you do that, please? You don't have to repeat it. Just give us a written copy of what you commented. Thank you. So we recognize now the officer of the NR who will make the report. Okay. The presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Sabihan na magbigay na lang. Hindi namin naintindihan yung first part.
Good morning to the Honorable Chairperson of the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources and Climate Change, Senator Cynthia Villar, as well as to the other honorable members of the committee. On behalf of the DENR and with the permission of Secretary Roy Simatu, we are pleased to present to you the environmental actions and rehabilitation measures undertaken and to be implemented in the areas affected by the typhoons Rolly and Ulysses. The devastation experienced from typhoons Rolly and Ulysses may have prompted President Rodrigo Roa Duterte to issue Executive Order number 120 last November 18. The said order is entitled Strengthening Rehabilitation and Recovery Efforts in Typhoon-Hit Areas through the creation of the Build Back Better Task Force. As such, 2 days after DNR Secretary Roy Simatu, chair of the said task force, with his co-chair, DPWH Secretary Mark Villar, were quick to convene the task force Build Back Better, initially composed of 24 member agencies. Up to this day, the task force has already convened 4 times. What I will share with you this morning are the highlights of initiatives within the task force, particularly emphasizing the task force endeavors towards intensified watershed management or our green infrastructure priorities. The presentation includes a brief situationer regarding the typhoons that hit from October to November of this year, the state of river basins where the areas hit by the typhoons are located, namely Marikina River Basin, the Cagayan River Basin, and the Bicol River Basin, to show the watershed management in these areas, particularly reforestation efforts. We will also present the assessment of quarrying and mining in these areas and the post-disaster rehabilitation measures and action plans, highlighting the green infrastructures. From October to November 2020, 6 consecutive typhoons entered the Philippine area of responsibility. The amount of rainfall brought about by each typhoon in the area basins, as shown in the table, caused saturation in the watersheds, especially Typhoon Ulysses. The amount of rainfall by Ulysses is triple the amount of rainfall brought about by previous typhoons. Based on records of rainfall in the Pasig-Marikina Basin, Typhoon Ulysses had less rainfall than Typhoon Ondoy. But the water level rapidly increased during the Typhoon Ulysses due to its constant rainfall pattern compared to Typhoon Ondoy, which had 2 peaks. In addition, there was a greater volume of rainfall that was received by the upstream section of the river basin, which was already saturated as compared to during Typhoon Ondoy, where there was less rainfall upstream. The Marikina River Basin is a huge basin comprised of 69,826 hectares. Based on topography and geomorphology, the Upper Marikina River watershed is prone to landslides and erosion. The Lower Marikina watershed includes the floodplain and wetlands of Marikina River, where built-up areas are located. These areas receive the overflow of the Upper Marikina watershed. The map shows the land cover conservation areas such as National Integrated Protected Area System, or NIPAS, and Enhanced NIPAS, and other special interests such as the National Greening Program sites and the tenurial instruments issued in the Marikina River Basin. The shaded maroon shows the high occurrence of threats due to cutting and land conversion. A total of 34,747 hectares of plantations under the NGP has been established in the whole province of Rizal. Within the Upper Marikina River Basin, we have established around 16,212 hectares of plantations between the years 2011 and 2019. The major commodities planted within the area include indigenous, pioneering, timber, and rattan. We partnered with a total of 195 people's organizations and local government units in the establishment and maintenance of these plantations. Based on the flood hazard map, the Marikina River system is 4.21% very high susceptibility to flooding and 2.39% high susceptibility for flooding to occur. During the post-typhoon assessment, an area which appeared to be a reclamation in Marikina River was brought to our attention. The image on the left shows the aerial photo taken in 1982, the black and white, and satellite image acquired in 2019. River lines were digitized based on these images. Note the river line in 1982 indicated in blue. It became narrower in 2019, as shown in red. The reclaimed area, hatched orange lines, is shown to be approximately 1.4 hectares. This area is part of the natural floodplain of the watershed. Temporary agriculture areas can be feasible in such areas, but not permanent built-up areas, which were developed through the years in Marikina. Moving on to the Cagayan River Basin. The Cagayan River is the longest river in the country with an estimated length of 520 kilometers from the headwater in Nueva Vizcaya to its mouth in Apari, Cagayan. There are also 12 major river tributaries draining directly into the Cagayan River. The CRB is situated at the northeastern part of Luzon. The CRB is the largest river basin in the country with a total land area of 27,493.49 kilometers. The river basin is divided into 23 sub-watersheds as shown in the figure. This map shows the conservation areas such as NIPAS, e-NIPAS, and other special interests such as the NGP sites and the tenurial instruments issued in the Cagayan River Basin. The shaded maroon shows the high occurrence of threats due to cutting and land conversion. The Cagayan River watershed lies within the boundaries of Cordillera Administrative Region, Region 2, Region 3, with a total drainage area of 2,807,463 hectares. This map shows the land classification of the area, which comprises forest land in green and alienable and disposable land in light yellow. A total of 121,449 hectares of denuded and degraded forest lands have been planted with 36 million seedlings with the different provinces of the Cagayan River Basin. Commodities planted in the area include fruit trees, timber, mixed commodities, and indigenous species. This map shows the extent of flood situation in the areas around the CRB on November 13 at 6 p.m. The areas shaded in red are the flooded areas. This next map shows that from 2007 to 2011, sandbars and erosion of the levees were already observed. It is the nature of a river system in a floodplain to migrate or meander or change its direction depending on its flow rate and geology and geomorphology of the area. It is important that designation of no-build zones or continuous engineering interventions be implemented to lessen the erosion. The presence of multiple sandbars with very large volumes along the Cagayan River heavily impeded the river flow, which caused flooding to areas beside the riverbank. Now moving on to the Bicol River Basin. This map shows the land area, conservation areas of NAIPAS and INAIPAS, and other interest areas such as the NGP sites and tenurial instruments issued in the Bicol River Basin. The shaded maroon areas show the high occurrence of threats due to cutting and land conversion. The Bicol River Basin within its location is exposed to different geologic and meteorological hazards. The presence of volcanoes, surrounding coastlines, and faults add damage to the exposure of the BRB to different hazards such as flooding, earthquake-induced hazards, coastal hazards such as tsunamis, storm surges, and coastal erosion, and occurrences of typhoons. The BRB has a total land area of 301,551 hectares and covers the provinces of Albay, Camarines Sur, and Camarines Norte. There are 258,832 hectares of alienable and disposable land, while 42,718 hectares are forest land. Around 9,065 hectares are classified as closed forest, while 13,715 hectares are open forest. There are 607.55 hectares of open barren land. A total of 66,951 hectares have been planted in the Bicol River Basin under the NGP. This map shows the land cover, conservation areas such as NAIPAS, INAIPAS, and other special interests like the NGP, and the tenurial instruments in the Catanduanes Watershed Forest Reserve. The shaded red shows the high occurrence of threats due to cutting and land conversion. The island province of Catanduanes lies in the eastern frontier of the country that is virtually isolated in the Pacific coast. Though pretty much within the typhoon belt, it is blessed with significant landforms and rich forests. Thus, Catanduanes is considered the last frontier of the Bicol region in terms of forest cover. With the province's total land area of 146,139 hectares, it consists of Catanduanes Watershed Forest Reserve, which is around 33% of its total land area. The next few slides will show the state of forest cover in the river basins of Marikina, Cagayan, and Bicol. This map shows the land cover of the Marikina River Basin, consisting mostly of the forest land cover, shown in green shaded area. Upper basin, where the protected area of Upper Marikina Basin, where the protected area is located, and non-forest cover is located. This non-forest cover here, or increase in built-up areas within the Marikina River Basin, as shown in the two land cover maps of 2005 and 2017. There is less soil or land to absorb the water, or a storage causing the water to go through storm drainage or to any surface water. The Cagayan River Basin is predominantly classified as forest land, as it is surrounded by 3 mountain ranges. Around 69% of the total area of the river basin is classified as forest land, while the remaining 31% is classified as alienable and disposable. The provinces of Isabela, Cagayan, Aurora, Apayao, and Nueva Vizcaya are the provinces in the river basin that belong to the top 10 provinces in the Philippines with large forest cover. Moreover, Aurora, Nueva Vizcaya, Benguet, and Quirino belong to top 10 provinces with high density of forest cover. Provinces of Abra, Benguet, and Nueva Ecija covered by Cagayan River Basin are wholly forest land area. This figure shows the comparison of land cover in the river basin in 2003 and 2010. There are 18 land covers in Cagayan River Basin identified through the 2010 data of the NAMRIA. As an agricultural region, annual crops covered the largest portion of the river basin, with a land area of 864,000 hectares comprising 31.44% of the total land area. This is followed by broadleaf open forest comprising 18% of the total land area, wooded grassland with 13%, broadleaf closed forest with 12.68%, and grasslands with 8.11%. Built-up areas has a land area of 46,478 hectares, or equivalent to 1.69% of the total land area in the river basin. It is scattered in areas with low elevations. Forest lands in 5 protected areas constitute about 12 and 4% of the total Bicol River Basin area. These areas, which cover the higher slopes of Mount Labo, Mount Isarog, Mount Malinaw, Mount Masaraga, Mount Iriga, Mount Mayon, Ragay Hills, and Bicol National Park, contain most of the remaining 10,000 hectares of closed forests and 18,304 hectares of open forests, including their associated biodiversity resources. The 2010 forest cover map of the Bicol River Basin provides 2 categories of the open forest cover: open forest broadleaf and open forest mixed. On the NGP, a total of 16,212.85 hectares have been planted within the Upper Marikina River Basin protected landscape under the National Breeding Program. Meanwhile, the number of seedlings planted is 8.7 million. Around 10,406 hectares have been planted within the Bicol River Basin, with 7,653,702 seedlings planted. A total of 121,449 hectares of denuded and degraded forest lands have been planted, with 83.9 million seedlings within the different provinces covering the Cagayan River Basin. These are some of the NGP sites within Upper Marikina River Basin protected landscape. Here are those in the Cagayan River Basin. And these are in the Bicol River Basin. Based on the river basin master plans of the 3 river basins, these are the issues and concerns that have been identified. In Marikina, they are the rapid urban development and increasing population, inadequate flood control structures, improper land use and zoning, illegal occupation of easement, including riverbanks, improper implementation of solid waste management, among others. In the Cagayan River Basin, these are the high variability of water supply, upland migration, unsustainable upland farming, and increasing population pressure. In the Bicol River Basin, these are the continuing development in the areas, deteriorating irrigation system, and the saline water intrusion. Immediately after the typhoon, Secretary Roy Cimatu instructed that for an immediate assessment on the compliance of mining companies, quarry operators, and mineral processing companies in Cagayan Valley, Bicol Region, and Upper Marikina River Basin. This is the map of the mineral production sharing agreements and LGU-issued quarry permits within the Marikina River Basin. There are 11 MPSAs under commercial operations, which were all found to be compliant with MGB Memorandum Circular 2018.02, which are the guidelines for compliance monitoring and ratings and scorecard of mining permits contracts. There are also 6 mineral processing permittees in Rodriguez, Rizal. Meanwhile, there are 16 quarry permits issued by the local government unit, 12 of which are in Barangay San Isidro, Rodriguez. There is a total of 277.89 hectares of disturbed areas within the permitted contract or quarry areas. The assessment recommended to improve the bench development and management of overburdened materials among quarry permit holders in Barangay San Isidro. It was also recommended to provide and install adequate siltation control structures to contain silt-laden surface runoff and prevent from going directly into the rivers. This map shows the existing MPSAs in Region 2, indicated in red and the yellow shaded areas. There are two financial or technical assistance agreements, FTAAs, under commercial operations. One is Osana Gold Dipidio Gold Copper Project, which incidentally is not operational at this time since its renewal of its FTAA is still under review by the Office of the President. Connected to Adalam Sub-Basin and FCF Minerals Incorporated Gold Molybdenum Project situated along Magat River. These two FTAs are found to have been compliant with MGB circular. For Bicol, we'd like to show the December 2019 Google Earth image of Basug River Channel in Santo Domingo, Albay. Shown here are the existing quarry sites represented by yellow diamonds that can be seen along the channel. Now this is how the Basug River Channel looks like post-Super Typhoon Rolly. This map shows the December 2019 Google Earth image of the Bulawan River Channel in Malilipot, Albay, and the existing quarry sites. This is how it looks post-Super Typhoon Rolly. Only two MPSAs are under commercial operations in Albay as of October 31 of this year. The Ibalong Resources and Development Corporation in Kamalig and Ginobatan, Albay, and the UBS Marketing Corp in Legazpi City. Only IRDC was found compliant with MGB Memorandum Circular. There are also 14 LGU issued quarry permits that were all found non-compliant together with the UBS. All these were suspended upon investigation. The assessment reports several factors that have contributed to the flooding. The slope gradient from the foot of Wawa Dam to Marikina area is only 0.03%, which slope gradient retards the flow of water. Historically, portions of Marikina, San Mateo, Rodriguez are former marshland, ricelands, with elevation ranging from 5 to 12. Laguna Lake elevation is 6 meters. The total indicative runoff volume of water from the watershed is estimated at 581 million cubic meters during Typhoon Ulysses. Most of the underlying rocks in the Marikina watershed are composed of massive volcanic rocks, basalt, which is not porous and will not absorb water. The assessment noted that the total disturbed areas for quarrying is 278 hectares, which translates to 0.52% of the total Marikina watershed. If all urban development and quarrying are stopped and the Marikina watershed are fully planted with 10-year-old mature trees, it will require 9 times the area of Marikina watershed to absorb all the water during Typhoon Ulysses. On post-disaster rehabilitation measures and action plans, the task force Build Back Better pursuant to EO number 20, headed by the DENR and DPWH, have identified key result areas for the implementation of its post-disaster rehabilitation measures and action plans. These are the KRAs. KRA 1 for better and resilient infrastructures. 2, stronger shelter and resilient settlements. 3, improved systems and essential services. 4, restored sustainable livelihood. 5, strengthened governance through broad-based citizen input. And lastly, KRA 6, which is led by DENR, intensified watershed management. This KRA 1 is aimed at ensuring the establishment of better and resilient infrastructure. It's chaired by DPWH, and the members of the KRA are DNR, DOTR, NEDA, DILG, DND, DOF, DOST, DBM, DOE, and DepEd. 4 priority actions have been identified for KRA, namely dredging works along 19 priority sites in Cagayan River. 2, approval by NEDA of Upper Marikina Dam. 3, implementation of
Excuse
phase 4
me.
of Pasig Marikina
Excuse
River.
me.
Yes,
There's something. Okay, that's better. Can you remove that? Can you repeat that presentation, please?
Okay. Okay. For key result area number 1, 4 priority actions have been identified, namely dredging works along 19 priority sites of Cagayan River. Number 2, approval by NEDA of Upper Marikina Dam. Number 3, implementation of phase 4 of Pasig Marikina River Channel Improvement Project. And number 4, completion of detailed engineering design of structural improvements on Bicol River Basin. The constricted section or bottleneck site of Cagayan River called Magapit Narrows will be prioritized for dredging. There are 19 priority sites identified for dredging along the Cagayan River. The total volume for dredging works in Cagayan River is expected to be 8,174,400.80 cubic meters. Assessment of 65.78 kilometer stretch from Apari to Alcala was completed. It shows the choke points or bottleneck areas within the lower Cagayan River Basin, which starts from Alcala to Magapit, Lalo, Cagayan. The average width of the Cagayan River is approximately 758 meters. Then it was constricted into 125 meters in Alcala, 243 and 307 near the Magapit Bridge in Lalo, Cagayan. The DPWH reported the following projects which the task force Build Back Better agreed to be fast-tracked. First is the Pasig Marikina River Channel Improvement Project, Phase 4. Second is the Upper Marikina Dam and Retarding Basin Project. Third is the Parañaque Spillway Project. Key result area number 6 is the intensification of watershed management covering Cagayan, Bicol, and the Upper Marikina River basins. This is chaired by the DENR, and the member agencies include DILG, NEDA, the DPWH, NHA, DSUD, LRA, NIA, DOST, DBM, DOE, DSWD, and that's it. The green infrastructure is an approach to water management that protects, restores, or mimics the natural water cycle. This key result area supports the promotion of green infrastructure. It means planting of trees and restoring wetlands rather than building a costly new water treatment plant. Green infrastructure will involve the enhancement of watersheds, forest cover. This will require delineation and recovery of river easements, designation of areas as river and no-build zones, establishment of tree zone or green corridor along riverbanks by planting bamboo and other suitable species. These are the areas in Cagayan to Tuguegarao that need to be enhanced using the green infrastructure techniques. These approaches will manage the stormwater, which comes in various forms, and several techniques can often be combined in one project. Enhanced National Greening Program is the major component of this intervention. Under the enhancement of watersheds forest cover, the government will aggressively pursue planting of indigenous species in protection forests, intensified forest protection and anti-illegal logging campaign, implementation of forest rehabilitation activities through the family approach and cash for work. To ensure the availability of seedlings, following activities will be implemented. Full operationalization of the modernized and mechanized forest nurseries in regions 2, 3, 5, Calabar Zone, and NCR to produce indigenous endemic seedlings. Inventory and the delivery of all replacement seedlings from DNR NCR, Calabar Zone. Region 3, involvement of the private sector. For instance, the compliance to the environmental compliance certificates that have been issued, the mining forest programs, the DOTR franchise activity that the DOTR is spearheading, and others to be utilized for easement planting. From November 27 to December 2, 2020, the DNR issued two memoranda. One is on the demolition of illegal structures and prohibition of unauthorized constructions and guidelines on the issuance of clearances and permits for new development projects in the protected areas. And the other is on strengthening forest protection activities by ensuring 24/7 manning of forest products monitoring stations and strict implementation of the Lawin Forest and Biodiversity Protection System. Green infrastructures will also include adopting soil and water conservation measures through establishment of structural measures. Examples are the check dams and gabions constructed in the upper Marikina River Basin protected landscape. These are used to cope with soil loss and reservoir siltation. Water harvesting through the construction of small water impounding structures and mandatory rainwater harvesting in all buildings will be pursued. Green street planting in urban centers and development of green parks for each barangay will be promoted. Green infrastructure will also involve improvement of land use practices, such as transforming upland cornfields into agroforestry farms, bioengineering measures for gullies and cultivated areas, and promotion and adoption of agroforestry technologies on steep slopes. Based on the post-typhoon assessment conducted, these are the areas in Tuguegarao, Cagayan that need to be enhanced using the green infrastructure strategy. The strategy will ensure managing the stormwater. ENGP, mainly bamboo planting, is the major component of this particular intervention. To ensure availability of planting materials, continuing production of bamboo will be intensified. Based on the targets that have been set, a 38% accomplishment was reported as of December 4, December of this year. KRA number 4 on restored sustainable livelihood. Other pillars of area essential in this industry to create more green jobs and jobs and ensure a more sustainable family income. The demand for bamboo products is high. Excuse me, ensure will demand for bamboo products is high. Excuse me, family income. For bamboo, the market controls, including 560 at least 153 meters long of portions in Larion, all in Cagayan. There are at least 52,292 available stock materials in the region that can be planted initially. For KRA number 2, is focused on ensuring establishment of stronger shelter and resilient settlement, led by DSUD with the following members: the ILG, NEDA, DPWH, DBM, NHA, DSWD, LRA, LUA, NEA, DNR, DOE, and DOST. The identified priority actions under KRA 2 are the provision of shelter assistance to affected households, which includes financial assistance, relocation of informal settler families, affected families living along danger zones, construction of evacuation facilities, identification and access of suitable sites for housing development, and the provision of basic services in the settlement of sites. And finally, KRA 5, which aims to strengthen the governance of affected areas through broad-based citizen input, is composed of agencies, namely NEDA, DBM, DepEd, DPWH, NHA, DSUD, LRA, DTI, DENR, and DOE. This is chaired by the Department of Interior and Local Governments. Priority actions under KRA 5, mainstreaming disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation components in the local development plans and policies. This includes the capacity building on the conduct of climate and disaster risk assessment and other data gathering methods for a strengthened basis of land use plans, contingency plans, and other local development plans. Enforcement of policies on no-build zone areas. This includes strengthening institutional capacity to monitor land use changes. And convergence meetings and localization activities to 200 geographically vulnerable barangays. This includes the provision of technical assistance to formulate strategic communication plan related to climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction. That's all, Madam Chair, for the presentation of DNR. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Yusek Mitch Kuna, for the presentations. And I just want you to repeat that portion, your last portion on the Marikina watershed, your last statement there. Can you repeat that? Your presentation, your last presentation on Marikina watershed. Your last statement there. I just want to read it properly. You said that even if about the Marikina watershed, that even if they absorb all the water, it will not be enough to absorb all the water going to Marikina River. There's something like that. I just want to read that. Your last statement there.
Yeah. Ma'am, just give me a few minutes. I'm looking for the slide. I think
Yeah,
that was on
while
my-
looking at that, I want to ask. You look for that, you give it to me because I want to understand that. And why is there, why is the sound like that? It's repeating itself. There's something wrong with the sounds. The last one, when you said the Marikina watershed will not be able to absorb all the water of the typhoon. Ayan, if all urban development and quarrying are stopped and the Marikina watershed are fully planted with 10-year-old mature trees, it will require 9 times the area of Marikina's watershed to absorb all the water during Typhoon Ulysses. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, if, Madam Chair, if I may defer to the Director of the Mines and Geosciences Bureau, Attorney Wilfredo Moncano. He's here now.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Our hydrologist in the Mines and Geosciences Bureau, ma'am, computed the total volume of water that was discharged during the typhoons. And at 100% saturation of the soil, meaning the soil can no longer absorb the water, because it was fully saturated because of the previous rains. All of this 581 million cubic meter of water would be all going down to the floodplains and therefore causing flooding of the flooding of these vicinities, no? So that even if the entire Marikina watershed is planted with 10-year-old mature trees, it will still require 9 times that area to absorb the water that was poured during Typhoon Ulysses. So meaning, even if no matter how we fully plant the entire Marikina watershed, it still cannot absorb all the water during that event, during Typhoon event of Ulysses.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, naka-mute kayo. Mm-mm.
I just want to clarify that you mean that even if we protect the Marikina watershed, it will not absorb the water of Typhoon Ulysses, no matter how much effort we do in the Marikina watershed. Is that what you mean? I cannot understand that. You unmute.
Yes. The volume of water of that particular typhoon event of that day was really really huge. So that the entire Marikina watershed, even if it's fully planted, cannot absorb the water.
I just
Madam
want
Chair.
to. Yes. Senator Risa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gusto ko ring sumali dun sa tanong nyo sa MGB at DENR. I was also very surprised by that
Yes.
observation. Opo, just like the chair. Kasi kung sasabihin natin na kahit tigilin lahat ng urban development, kahit tigilin ng quarrying, or if we want to add, kahit tigilin ng mining, which are both banned anyway, in protected areas, which the Marikina watershed is, para sabihin natin na kahit may 10 times yung area ng Marikina watershed ay hindi
I don't believe
maaagapan. Exactly, Madam Chair. I cannot believe it also. It would seem to be an argument setting up to fail dun sa pagprotekta ng watershed para mas maprotektahan ng watershed yung ating mga syudad at urban area. So, with all due respect, I think that's still a live issue, and palagay ko yung iba rin nating mga resource persons both from within DENR, yung iba pa nating units doon, at yung ating mga ibang stakeholders and advocates, I'm sure Madam Chair can present a critical and an alternative view on that, Madam Chair. Salamat po.
So we will just file a resolution on that statement because that would make all our efforts in protecting the protected area useless, di ba? With that
Madam Chair.
statement,
Madam
it
Chair.
should not come from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Madam
That's
Chair.
why I'm always telling this DNR that you should not make statement like that because I also read in a newspaper that DNR officer said, I'm trying to find that article, na pag daw pinigil yung mga quarrying at mga kung ano-ano dyan sa Marikina watershed, that will delay all the projects in NCR. So in effect, they're saying that we cannot protect the Marikina watershed because that will delay all the construction projects in NCR. I cannot imagine an officer of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources saying that. We should hear that from the Department of Public Works and Highway, not from
Exactly,
you.
Madam
My
Chair.
God, I am always telling them that not to make those kind of statements because you are a department which is supposed to protect the environment. You let
Yes.
all the other departments say that, but not you because you are justifying all the destruction of our environment.
Saka Madam
So-
Chair, yung logical conclusion ng statement nilang yon would be, let's just sacrifice the watershed in order to proceed with so-called development projects, when in fact, the protection of the watershed will protect our cities and urban areas, which will enable our development programs to succeed, Madam Chair.
And we passed them into law. The president issued an executive order, and then
Madam Chair?
afterwards, the Congress passed them into law. And you will say that we cannot do anything because protecting the watershed will cause distraction to other activities in Metro Manila. That's being
Madam Chair?
responsible. Yes.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Madam
Yeah.
Chair?
Madam
So
Chair?
one by one, whom do we ask first to speak?
Madam
Senator
Chair?
Binay, and then DNR Secretary, and then Senator Marcos. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Siguro, on the same issue, kasi ang na-mention nila is Typhoon Ulysses, di ba? Kumbaga yung volume ng rainfall na yun, hindi kakayanin ng watershed. So siguro, ang itatanong ko, Madam Chair, anong volume ng water yung kakayanin kung titigil natin yung quarrying at kung tataniman natin itong Marikina watershed? May ganong computation ho ba ang DNR?
Do you have a computation like that? Yes. Can you introduce yourself before you? May you introduce yourself before you speak, ha? So we will know who are talking, because there's no ano. So it's Director Wilfredo Moncano of DNR MGB. Okay, Director.
Yes, ma'am. Our hydrologists in the Land Geological Survey Division made computations on the volume of water that was poured during the four typhoons rain. The four typhoons, no? But during Typhoon Ulysses, it was computed at 531 million cubic meter at 100% saturation. We could not, the hydrologists could not estimate if how many percent was absorbed by the trees, no, and the soil. But as far as the water is concerned, yung volume of water that was poured during that Typhoon Ulysses was about 500 million cubic meter.
But do you agree with me that DNR should not make any kind of statement like that? As if you're saying that we should not protect the Marikina. It's the same as saying that we should not protect the Marikina watershed because it cannot stop flooding in Marikina. It's an indirect way of justifying all those they are doing in in the Marikina watershed. We always argue about that when we have hearing. I always tell the DNR, don't make statements like that. Tell the others, maybe the mining companies, maybe DPWH, maybe the others, but never the DNR. You don't make statement like that because if our DNR are not bent on protecting our watershed, who will be bent on protecting our watershed? Diba? Parang it's a responsibility on your part to say those things. My God. Ano? Lagi na lang tayo nag-aaway, Secretary Kuna, nung sa yung Manila Bay, ganyan din, nag-away din tayo kasi ayaw mo i-protect yung Manila Bay. Sabi ko, okay lang, yung reclamation, i-defend yan ng DTI, but never DNR. Because your primary responsibility is to protect the environment. So you should not be saying things like that. Hindi ko maintindihan yon. Tayo kasi, kayo ang mga environmentalists sa gobyerno. So you should always be for the environment, not to justify the destruction of the environment. Yes, Secretary Simato, can you speak for your people?
Madam Chair, really, we need the watershed and we have to protect the watershed. We need it, Your Honor. And
This was some computations made. Hindi lang kasi namin napag-usapan yan. So, I'd like to,
I want you to make
the geologist of the MGB, sila. Kasi in the particular, the worst case scenario po kasi yung Typhoon Ulysses. So nag-compute sila regarding volume of water na bumagsak within the 6-hour period dyan sa Marikina. Tinagpwede ng volume na yan.
Ipagpalagay ng napakalakas ng Ulysses. Pero sana sinabi nyo na lang that with the protection of the Marikina watershed, tapos maglalagay tayo ng ibang programa doon, I'm sure we can solve that problem even if malakas ang ulan, di ba? Hindi nyo sasabihin na kahit i-protect natin yun, hindi kaya yung Typhoon Ulysses.
Yes, Madam.
Hindi.
Really, we have
Na-shock na naman ako sa inyong department kasi parang sinasabi nyo na pabayaan na lang kasi hindi kaya pag typhoon yung kasing strong ng Typhoon Ulysses. I cannot accept
Madam
that.
Chair.
You know, what's the difference? But kami, hindi naman kami malayo sa Marikina. Meron din kaming bundok, yung Tagaytay, nagpupunta sa amin. Bakit with our effort, hindi kami nagbaha? Hindi lang namin sinarhan yung Manila Bay. Nalalabasan ng tubig namin. Yun. Plus, hinukay namin yung river namin na as deep and widen it as wide as possible. Nung before ginawa namin yun, nabaha ang aming 3 barangay. Ngayon, walang nabaha sa amin. Miski saan, walang nabaha. So, it's really an effort na dapat we should not give up. We should do everything para ma-solve natin yung problema. Kasi lalo naman napakahirap nung katakot-takot na evacuation center itatayo mo, tapos pakakainin mo ng ilang buwan yung mga nasa evacuation center na naghahawahan sila sa COVID-19. Lalong mahirap naman yun. Mas ma-better na lang tong ginagawa namin na linis kami ng linis ng river namin, tapos widen kami ng widen ng river namin, tapos nilabanan namin yung reclamation. Mas madali yun kesa yung na lang may bagyo katakot-takot na hirap ang aabutin natin, di ba? So, yes, Senator Amy, can you ask your question now?
Yes, katulad rin ninyo, talagang medyo hinimatay naman tayo na mismo yung DENR, surrender na. Naku, General Simatu, hindi naman nagsusurrender ang sundalo. Kaya napigla naman po tayo. So, ang siguro ma-obserbahan ko na lang, unang-una, yung enforcement po natin. Higpitan naman natin yung enforcement natin. Mismo kayo nagsabi na non-compliant yung pagkarami-rami ng mga quarrying, mining, logging activities. So yung enforcement man lang, kitang-kita naman ang ebidensya, kalbong-kalbo na ang Sierra Madre kahit protected zone. Ano ba ang plano dyan? Sana ba yung mahiwagang puno ng NGP na yan na dekad-dekadang binibigyan ng bilyon-bilyon taon-taon? Siguro, the other thing, perhaps in defense of the ENR, that we can say is that the truth of the matter is neither Magap nor Angat irrigation systems were ever completed. So clearly, if we recall, the Mangahan control gates, the Parañaque spillway, above all, the multi-purpose dams upstream of Marikina and Montalban were never finished. So to that degree, yung public works at yung gray infrastructure ang kinakailangan. Pero wag naman natin sabihin na hindi kasama yung green infra. Medyo kayo na mismo ang nagsabi na kailangan na may mga nursery seedlings. Alam niyo, ang tagal-tagal na naming nagpapatubo ng sariling tanim sa Ilocos Norte at sa mga karatig probinsya. Pag humingi ka sa DENR, na-stack up na sila sa ilang variety ng NARA. Ang kailangan sa green infrastructure, magkaroon tayo ng bakawan. Walang makuhang mangrove. Yung mga bamboo na tinatanim, kakapraso at mali-mali pang species. Tapos yung mga kailangan natin na talagang pang wetland park, yung mga wetland plants, yung mga emergent, yung mga floating, yung mga submerged, yung mga ferns na kailangan, pati yung mga ornamental flowers, ang gaganda niyan. Pero hindi interesado ang DENR dyan eh. Dapat yan ang talagang itanim natin, bakawan, yung bamboo sa Ilocano, bayog ang tawag. Ewan ko kung ano sa Tagalog yun, basta yung halos walang butas. Lahat yun, wala namang pakialam ng DENR dyan eh, sa totoo lang. Sa atin-atin na lang. Parang naging racket na ng ating mga forest ranger yung NARA. So, pakisuyo lang, seryosohin naman natin ang green infrastructure at wag natin sabihin sa umpisa pa lamang na surrender na po tayo. Hindi po bagay kay Secretary Simatu. Maraming salamat.
And in that connection with the trees, gusto ko i-discuss kay Secretary Simatu, bakit ayaw nyo nung bamboo, giant bamboo? Alam nyo, bibigyan lang natin ng and I'm willing to give to all the places yung bamboo processing. There is kasi presidential decree by GMA that 25% of the chairs of the DepEd should be made of bamboo. So bibigyan lang natin yung mga nagtanim ng mga bamboo sa ating protected area ng processing equipment, siguradong hanap buhay na yun. Ang maganda sa bamboo, pag kinat mo, hindi mo kinakat yung roots. So naho-hold niya yung wetland and they regrow. Unlike yung trees, pag kinat mo, patay na yun eh. Tapos para pakainabangan mo, talaga ikakat mo kasi laging pagbibili mo yung tree. Whereas the bamboo, pwede mo ikat yung bamboo, i-process mo, hindi mo kailangan ikat yung tree, they will regrow. So naho-hold pa rin niya yung land,
That's right.
yung water, kahit nakinat mo yung bamboo at kumita yung mga tao. Ako, ipangako nyo lang sa akin, magtatanim kayo ng giant bamboo, yung lahat ng lugar na tinaniman nyo, bibigyan ko ng bamboo processing. Mura lang yun eh. Dito sa Las Piñas, 6 million lang ang nagasta namin to make the bamboo processing plant
Madam Chair,
namin.
if I might add, yung mangrove po, ilang beses na namin sinasabi at hinihingi sa DENR, yung bakawan. Malaking
Yes.
bagay yun. Nung nagkaroon ng tsunami sa Phuket, sa Thailand, sa
Yeah.
Indonesia, ang mga areas na punong-puno ng bakawan, talagang
Dinadamage.
naprotektahan, pati yung Sabah. Ang problema, yung DENR, walang masyadong paniniwala sa mangrove. So, sana, yun ang sinasabi ko, this green infrastructure and mangrove forest can actually fight off even tsunamis of the 2009 level.
No, di ba ang study sandali lang, ang study sa Leyte at Samar, lahat ng town na may coastal mangrove forest hindi na damage
That's right.
ng Yolanda. Kaya kami yung aming 35 hectares mangrove forest sa Las Piñas, talagang nakikipag-away ako sa kanila kasi pag nag-reclamation kayo, patay 'yon. Patay 'yon. Hilig-hilig nyo mag-reclamation. Patay 'yon. Yun na nagpo-protect sa amin sa tsunami. Ba't ayaw nyo? At yun doon, ipinanganganak lahat ng isda na pumupunta sa Manila Bay. Spawning ground of fishes in Manila Bay. Ba't ayaw nyo noon? Si Director Cunadong hilig-hilig mag-issue ng ECC para patayin yung aming mga mangrove dito. Sige na, I will hear you, Secretary Simatu.
Madam Chair, this year, our greening program, 40% po pinapatanim kong bamboo, lahat yan, all over the regions, 40% po. And ayan po, of Cagayan River, the easement of the Cagayan River will be planted with bamboos po. And that if you total all this length of the river,
So we lost our sounds. Okay, are we okay? Secretary Simatu, you mute ka, Secretary Simatu. We cannot hear you, Secretary Simatu. There's something wrong. Ano ba yun? Hindi rin ako nadidinig. There's something wrong with the...
Si Madam Chair naririnig, si Secretary ang nawala.
Nawala si Secretary.
Opo.
You better call him. Sabi mo tawagan si Secretary Simatu, hindi siya nadidinig. Talaga to si Mitch, mahilig maglalagay. Sabi ko na, babasahin ko muna yung report bago ipakita.
Madam Chair, wala pa ring audio si Sec. Madam Chair, naka-mute din kayo. Di ka rin kayo marinig.
Yung minsan ina-unmute kami ng ng Senate. Oo. Baka na-unmute si Secretary si Mato.
1, 2.
Oh, yan, okay na.
Hello?
Okay. Oh, yes, you're okay. Secretary si Mato, okay. Oh.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear
Yes.
me now?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Okay.
Ma'am, well, I just want to respond regarding this Bambo.
Yes.
Ma'am, my priority really is Bambo, and I would like to make that in record that the reason why, the very big reason why we really need to increase the production of Bambo in our country, ma'am, is that while we have the National Greening Program, it is also the source of our lumber here in our country.
Yeah. It's
The
replacing
Philippines makes
lots.
about 5 million cubic meters of lumber a year. And this 5 million, 1 million lang po ang nagkukuha dito sa production dito sa Pilipinas. The 4 million ay ini-import ito. So that national greening program tayo, tapos after 8 years, puputulin din natin because we need the lumber.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of this
Bamboo.
engineered bamboo. Ma'am,
Yes.
this is really my ano naman, as DNR Secretary, because I went to a plant in Pangasinan, Bayambang yata yun. Nakita ko yung kanilang nag-produce sila ng lumber out of bamboo. All the requirements of the household, mga construction, can be also sourced from bamboo. So ito po yung aking talagang siniseryoso ko talaga ito na talagang i-propagate talaga yung bamboo. Yung tinatawag na giant bamboo, all kinds of bamboo, ipoproduce po natin ito.
Giant
We are
kasi yun
ready.
ang malaki.
Our mga regions are all will be planting bamboos po. In fact,
Yes.
umpisa na namin dito sa Cagayan River Umpisa na po namin kasi yung easement ng river dyan sa Cagayan ay tinaniman na nila ng corn. Nakakasira pala itong corn na production sa yung kanilang herbicide. Nakakano sa erosion.
Masira. Nakakamatay ng halaman.
Meron na kaming plano that the 5 kilometer, that's unahan muna namin yung 500 kilometers na river ay on both sides will be planted by bamboo. That means 10,000 hectares po ito. And we are ready to plant from Cagayan, Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya. Tataniman po lahat ito ng bamboo. And 20-meter easement po ng river will all be planted with bamboo effective this month and next month. Mag-umpisa na po kami rito para dito naman para maproteksyonan natin itong flooding nito, and at the same time we generate income na ito ng mga tao. Instead ng corn, bamboo na itanim natin. So iyon po ang aming gagawin muna yan. Aside from all regions po, from Luzon to Mindanao, ay 40% na pinapatanim kong bamboo. So iyan po ang aking so that in Ilocos.
Tapos, Secretary si Matu.
Lugar na yan, sinabi ko sa mga senros doon, you will be the manager of this plantation natin. Hindi natin na ipaubayan na lang sa mga nagtatanim-tanim, kailangan i-supervise mo, monthly kayo pupunta dito para sigurado ito, sabi ko kanila. Yung aming penro doon, kailangan all senros should be able to climb up the mountain. Kailangan pupunta kayo doon once a month. Bisitahin ninyo ito.
For ang taas-taas kasi ang ano diyan, mortality ito kasi pinapabayaan. So sabi ko, huwag kayong magtanim kung hindi rin naman ninyo
Pero ang bamboo po,
matubigan.
Secretary si Matu,
Ayan, kung hindi nyo matubigan yan,
hindi ba ako
sabay-sabay
matinig?
ka ako sa kanila. All over the country po yan ang aking because the reason for this low mortality is mahina yung lupa, hindi pa ninyo sinusupervisan. So sabi ko, okay, I will I will really look into that.
Secretary.
I have to improve the national greening program. We are not
Secretary,
after
nahihirapan rin sila sa uri
thousands
ng
of hectares
kawayan
ito.
kasi
I
hindi
would
nila
like to have an
hindi nila replace
90%
yung
survival rate. Yan ang sinabi ko, if you cannot do that, I will find somebody who can do that.
Sabi mo, hindi
Yan ang sinabi
magkari.
ko about bamboo. So,
Secretary si Matu, may sinasabi si Senator Amy na hindi daw maganda yung uri ng kawayan. Kailangan yata giant bamboo o bamboo tinik ba yun? O,
Bamboo tinik
para
Madam
magamit
Chair.
na processing. Kasi hindi lahat ng bamboo nagagamit sa processing. Katulad sa amin po, nagagawa kami ng hagdan out of bamboo. May bamboo processing ako dito sa Las Piñas. Yung mga maliliit, hindi pwede. Kailangan yung malalaki. So, giant bamboo or yung isa, dalawa sila na pwede. Yun ang
Oo.
itanim natin. Ano yun? Bamboo tinik yata tawag doon.
Yung mga matitinik na marurupok, hindi pwede yun eh. Yung bayog, yung halos walang butas po. At saka
Giant
yung
bamboo. Giant bamboo, sure.
giant, oo.
Giant bamboo.
Tapos
Oo.
yung isang klase. Tapos yung isa pang problema, yung bakawan. Ang konti-konti, wala talagang ma-produce.
Ba't hindi na lang natin i-focus sa bamboo at bakawan? Muna,
Yeah,
diba?
period.
Oo.
Madam
Yan
Chair.
talaga ang flood control na dalawa eh. Tapos
Oo,
maliban
yes.
pa doon, nauso po sa ibang bansa, yung mga ornamental plants and flowers, yung mga lotus, water lily, hanap buhay din yon at higit sa lahat, nagiging tourist spot yung lugar. Talagang pangangalagaan nila pag may hanap buhay at dumadagsa yung tao at bisita.
Sa amin naman, binabara ng water lily yung river namin. Although, kinukuha namin lahat at ginagawa namin basket yung water lily.
Madam
Yes,
Chair.
Senator Risa.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Sexy Matu, may mga tanong din ako tungkol sa National Greening Program, pero pati dito sa bamboo planting kasi napansin ko nga dun sa presentation ninyo, heavy at madalas yung pagbanggit sa bamboo. Tingin ko dapat nangunguna yung DNR para gabayan kung paano yung combination of plant species, lalo na sa national greening. Hindi naman mawawala or dapat mawala yung mga hardwoods dahil yun yung traditional na talagang kumakapit sa lupa.
Senator Risa, pinuputol
Yes, Chair.
nila pinuputol nila no illegal
Ayun nga
logging
po.
Yung
Exactly.
bamboo, kahit putulin,
Yes.
hindi nawawala, nagre-regrow. Kaya mas sustainable yung bamboo. Kasi yung mga puno, pinuputol nila, baliwala. Oh.
Well, that's why, Madam Chair, ang punto ko sa mga tanong ko tungkol sa National Greening Program at dito sa bamboo, dapat may tamang kombinasyon na bagay sa bawat area. Nandun pa rin yung mga hardwoods na tina-target talaga sa logging, pero sa totoo lang, yan yung species na traditionally kumakapit sa lupa, umiiwas sa pagbabaha. Plus yung bamboo, nagpasa kami ng batas tungkol sa development ng bamboo industry dito sa Pilipinas, kasama yung giant bamboo, hindi kapalit pero pang-complement sa hardwoods at lalo na sa coastal areas, precisely yung mga bakawan.
Mangrove.
Yes, yung mga mangroves. Pero hindi rin talaga dapat nawawala yung mga hardwoods. And in fact, meron po akong nakitang study, March 2020, quite recent, journal article po sa Global Ecology and Conservation Journal. Sabi po nila, na may pag-aaral na yung rooting ng mga bamboo clumps, magho-hold ba daw iyon? Or kung bamboo lang, no, hindi in combination sa hardwoods at sa bakawan, mawawash out lang ba daw ang bamboo, ma-exacerbate lang ba daw yung sitwasyon ng pagbabaha? So itong study, sabi kong rapid bamboo expansion to the exclusion of other grasses and tree species at saka mangroves, magi-impact daw ito sa biodiversity areas, magi-impact sa soil processes, magi-impact pati sa ecological integrity. So tingin ko, Sec, caution ito sa atin na dapat i-optimize natin yung positive effects ng bamboo kasama na yung giant bamboo na dapat intercropping siguro appropriately with the hardwoods na dapat protektahan lalo na sa watersheds, lalo na sa gubat. At sa coastal areas, large share ng bakawan o
Senator
mangroves.
Risa, can you give us
Sec.
that
Yes, Madam
study?
Chair.
Can you give
Will do,
us a
Madam
copy of that study so we
Will do
can
po.
that? Kasi ako
Yes, thank you, Chair.
very good ang aking experience sa bamboo kasi nagplant ako along our river. Tapos
Opo.
ngayon, we make I have a livelihood na making steps of houses which I supply our company. Natutuwa ako na 1/3 of my requirement, imagine galing sa Las Piñas, hindi ko binibili outside of NCR. Yung 2/3 ng requirement ko I buy from Quezon. But the 1/3, I'm able to get from the bamboos in the Las Piñas River. Kaya tuwan-tuwa ako kasi
Opo.
kahit kapala syudad, basta nagtanim ka ng bamboo, nagagamit mo pa sa livelihood ng mga tao at I'm able to earn from them. So,
Yes, Madam Chair. Padadala ko po sa inyo.
nakakatuwa. Nakakatuwa. Kaya sinasabi ko kay Secretary Simato, at pag ikaw ay nag-build ng bamboo plantation, tell me. So, yung aking right na mag-ano ng project, I will give them a bamboo processing center para tuloy-tuloy hanap buhay. Kasi kesa mag-i-illegal lagi, i-bamboo na lang, di ba? Hindi illegal yun eh. And they regrow and more sustainable.
Yes, Madam Chair. Pwede po, yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Tapos, Madam Chair, pagkatapos ni Sec, pwedeng magtanong pa kay Sec tungkol sa yung deforestation. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sige po, Sec si Matu,
Ma'am, may respond to Senator Ontiveros, yung kanya,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
yung kanya,
Yeah.
yung areas na para hardwood, may areas para bamboo. Meron ganun po ang aking mangyayari. The National Greening Program will be concentrated sa upland po dito sa mga very na pwedeng suited for hardwood like Agusan, Surigao. Doon talaga concentrate yun. Doon talagang hardwood. Kahit wala ka nang masyadong bamboo doon, ang dito naman sa lowland po, meron kaming cooperation sa DOTR and DILG na dito rin sa lowland magtanim tayo if we can use the greening program here dito sa baba, including private properties na kung pwede po sa bamboo dyan sa Iloilo, Panay Island po, yan ang pinakamaraming bamboo sa Pilipinas eh. And I was looking for
Iloilo
po na kung pwede maglagay ng processing plant doon sa may
meron sila, ari ng mayor,
marami po
Secretary Simato. Meron silang processing plant doon owned by the mayor. Ang sinasabi mo yung maasin Iloilo. Oo. Meron sila dong yung bamboo plantation. Tapos yung mayor may processing plant siya doon sa kanyang bayan. Meron sa Iloilo. Nauna pa yun sa akin. Doon pa ako nakakuha ng idea. Oo. Meron sila.
Madam Chair. And
Maasin Iloilo, meron sila. Ang dami nilang bamboo doon.
And I agree, Sec.
Plant sila.
I agree,
Kasi,
Sec. Yes.
Sila yung unang nag-supply, hindi ba si Injap, yung kanyang pagkain, yung barbecue.
Yes, inasal.
Sila yung supplier nung stick nung barbecue. At tapos yung pinutol nila na sobra, sila naman nagsusupply ng toothpick. Oo, yun ang kanilang negosyo doon. Inisyoso ko yun eh. Kaya alam ko yun eh. So,
I agree, Chair, and I agree, Sec, dun sa expansion ng National Greening Program kahit sa ilang tukoy na sa mga lowland area. So, and yun kasi tutugon talaga dun sa yung gusto kong itanong sa inyo tungkol sa deforestation. Sec, according kasi sa Food and Agriculture Organization, ang Pilipinas daw tayo ay isa sa pinakamataas na rates of deforestation sa mundo. Could you, Sec, please give the committee an assessment of the current state of our forest cover? Sec, nakamute po kayo.
Oh, yan na. Okay na.
Uploading po. Well,
Yes, sir.
the present forest cover or country, Your Honors, is 23%. We are the lowest. We are the lowest
sir.
in Asia, in Southeast Asia. And ang aking naging model po, yung South Korea. In South Korea po, ay talagang nasira yung forest nila nung nagka-civil war sila eh. But they were able to do something, and in fact, maganda po yung nangyari sa kanila. Actually naman ginagamit nila yung dati, yung mga kahoy nila, yung chopstick po. Yung chopstick po, not matter, ilang chopstick isang araw kasi kailangan na ilang kahoy na po yan. So hindi na sila gumagamit ng kahoy. Yung ginagamit nila yung bronze na yun, yung metal po, metal. Malaki
Opo.
pa ng bagay yun na hindi talaga, that help ma'am. And pangalawa yung binagbawal nilang pumasok doon sa forest na para pagkuha ng firewood. Talagang isang tao doon, wala talagang magputol ng firewood. In fact, nakano nga sila, sinubsidize nila yung mga bahay-bahay doon. Instead of firewood, sinubsidize nila yung kalan na yung gasol ba yun, yung mga so ganun po nangyari, malaking bagay ginawa nila at saka they make the forest off limits to people. So wala yan. So ganun po yung yan ang pinaplano ko po ngayon aside from the enforcement because ang kabilin-bilinan ko po sa illegal logging. Sabi ko, sabi ko, I'd rather, ginagawin nilang trophy kasi yun. Pupunta ako doon sa mga sentro, makita ko yung mga confiscated firewood, confiscated wood. Sabi ko, should that to me because that indication that we were not able to protect or prevent itong pagkat na ito. Sabi ko, nandyan yan, kung na-prevent natin ito, sabi ko sa kanila. So, don't show me any mga confiscated logging because that's not trophy for me, ako sa kanila. Sana wala yan kung hindi talaga pinayagan maputol ang mga ito ng mga illegal logger. So we have to...
Sec, probably, yes, Sec. Opo. It's probably trying to follow the good example of South Korea, no? So nagkaroon din po tayo over the decades ng mga programa kasama halimbawa itong pagdeklara ng watershed, pagdeklara ng protected areas. So Sec, if an area is declared a watershed or a protected area, would quarrying be allowed inside it?
Talagang no, talagang that's a big no, ma'am. That's a big no.
Opo.
Kasi in fact, in all protected area, not allow any mining or quarrying dyan po.
Yes, sir.
But allowed.
And yun na nga po, Chair. At yun yung specific question ko dito. Kasi isn't it true na under DENR, Administrative Order 1993-33, at may ipapakita po ako, Chair, na slide nito mamaya-maya, quarrying and mineral exploration in and around the Masungi limestones diyan sa Upper Marikina are explicitly prohibited, Sec.
Oh, well po, ma'am. Yes,
Yes, sir.
puntang ako doon, pinunta ko itong Masungi. Kasi
I think merong mga taga-Masungi dito eh.
reklamo sila po. Pumunta po ako doon. Nakita ko, sinira
Yes.
ko yung mga barbed wire nila doon. Kasi
Yes, Sec. Mabuhay kayo dyan. Opo, batid po ng lahat na nung March 2020, kayo mismo po tinanggal nyo yung mga bakod, yung mga barbed wire na yan ng isang quarry na nag-encroach sa Upper Marikina Watershed at sa Masungi Wildlife Sanctuary. Kaya, Sexy Matu, mabuhay talaga kayo dyan sa ginawa nyong iyan. Hindi po ba dineklara nyo na yung areang iyon ay watershed, yung areang iyon dineklara nyo ay protected area kung kaya't dapat prohibited ang mining activities doon?
yes po, ma'am. In fact, may mga quarries doon, yung provincial awarded na quarry ay pinasaraduhan ni Mayor doon.
No po.
Naman rin MPSA holder, pinasaraduhan rin po the other day, 3 days ago po.
Actually, Sec, hihingi po sana ako ng dokumento noon kung mayroon na kasi gusto ko pong malaman kung pwede niyong sabihin sa committee. Ano po yung status ng cancellation nung sister companies na iyon, yung Rapid City at saka yung Quarry Rock?
Well, we suspended yung dalawa po, pinasuspend ko na yon, yung MPSA na ito holder po.
Pinasuspend na sec.
Yeah,
Pwede po
po.
bang humingi ang komite ng kopya ng suspension orders ng secretary dyan?
Opo, ma'am. Opo, ma'am. Na-suspend ito 3 days ago.
3 days ago.
Opo.
Sige, Sec. Hihingi na lang po ako sa pamamagitan ng komite ng kopya ng suspension, yung actual suspension po na iyon dahil talagang napaka-importanting issue po ito dito sa dinidinig ng komite. And actually nga, in the first place, Sec, how could companies secure large-scale mining permits over some 1,000 hectares of the watershed and wildlife sanctuary? Samantalang yung area nga po ay watershed reservation mula pa pala po noong 1904. So gusto ko pong ipakita, Chair, sa komite itong photo na ito. Ito yung mismong DENR AO33. Yan po. Dated May 1993. Tapos may MPSA po, ang Rapid City at saka ang Quarry Rock. Ayan po, Chair at Secretary. Tapos sa isang Chair, sa isang Inquirer article na dated 27 November, ngayong lang 2020, sinabi po ni DENR Penro, Isidro Mercado at nakita ko po nandito kanina si Penro, sinabi po nila na yung Upper Marikina watershed is free, intact and free from human activity. Tinitindigan pa po ba ng DENR ang statement po na ito? Chair, pwede kaya nating itanong si Penro Mercado dahil nakita ko po sila kanina dito sa hearing.
We recognize, yeah, they're here.
Salamat, Chair. Sir Mercado, do you still stand by that statement na yung Upper Marikina watershed is intact and free from human activity? Sir, naka-mute po kayo.
We recognize Penro Mercado.
Thank you, Chair. Sir, naka-mute pa po kayo.
Magandang tanghali po, Madam Chair.
Tanghali po.
Magandang tanghali po, Senator Lisa. So yung
Magandang tanghali po.
ako po yung Protected Area Superintendent ng Upper Marikina. Kasi marami kaming programa din sa Upper Marikina. Bakit po namin sinabi na intact yung sapagkat dalawang activity po yung ginagawa namin, yung mga activity po sa Upper Marikina. Nag-i-implement po kami niya ng vegetative and structural measures dito po sa Upper Marikina. Doon po sa vegetative, kaya po nasabing medyo intact na po yung yung Upper Marikina sapagkat as early as 2011 po, we have this National Greening Program. So with that project, nadagdagan po yung vegetative yung vegetation po ng Upper Marikina.
Yes,
So,
Penro. Wala naman pong problema dun sa NGP kasi programa po natin na lahat po kami sa komite sumusuporta. Pero ang problema po, paano masasabing free from human activity kung at least until 3 days ago yung sinabi ni Sec, nag-ooperate sa loob niyan ang Rapid City at saka ang Quarry Rock? Paano po nangyari yun?
Madam Senator, ganito po, yung Upper Marikina po, may identified po na high conservation areas. So, ibig sabihin po niyan, dito po sa part ng Montalban o Rodriguez Rizal, maganda po yung yung estado ng ating vegetation. Actually, ito po yung naging project ng USID na isa sa lugar na pinag-aaralan po in connection with the conservation po dito sa lugar ito. Ito po ay
Pero Pedro Mercado, precisely po, speaking po of the conservation, dahil dineklara nga po yan na protected area, watershed, wildlife sanctuary, in compliance ba doon yung pag-operate? Well, unang-una, in compliance ba doon yung pagkakaroon ng MPSA ng Rapid City at saka Quarry Rock? Hindi po ba paglabag po yun sa deklarasyon nitong Upper Marikina Watershed bilang protected area? Kasi kanina po, Penro, sabi ni Sec, kung protected area, kung sanctuary, bawal ang quarrying, bawal ang mining, mineral production sharing agreement ang MPSA. So, tama po ba yun or mali ba yun?
Madam Senator, ganito po ang istorya nung MPSA. Yung pong MPSA was issued 1980s and the proclamation for 296 as Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Landscape is 2011. So therefore, dapat to tingnan mo maigi.
Actually, Penro, ang pinakita ko pong slide kanina, yung Quarry Rock MPSA dates to 1998 at yung Rapid City to 1999. So, dapat nung madeklara yung protected area wildlife sanctuary, DNR had all the mandate na i-enforce yun. At yun na nga, opo, tanggalin, Madam Chair, at gawing totoo yung sinabi ni Sec na kapag yun ang status protected area, walang extractive activities tulad ng mining at quarrying or logging for that matter. Hindi po ba, Pedro? Tsaka, Pedro Mercado, kung protected ang isang area, pwede po ba yung ibenta sa private persons? Totoo po ba na may malalaking tracts ng watershed na yon na ibinebenta for 10,000 pesos to 100,000 pesos per hectare? Nadala na po ba ito sa atensyon ninyo at sa atensyon ng department?
Madam Chairman, Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Ay, Penro, wala po kayong audio. Pero Madam Chair, may nagpapa-recognize.
Who's that?
Si Sec po yata, si Sec.
Yeah, Secretary Simato. Can you, we recognize Secretary Simato.
Yes, effective December 2, Your Honor, the following MPSA holder are suspended. MPSA number 070 are Asensio Pinson Aggregate Corporation, MPSA 136 San Rafael Development Corporation, MPSA number 239 Montalban Milex Aggregate Corporation, MPSA 202 Hard Rock Aggregates, number 5 Rapid City Realty and Development Corporation. Ito po suspended po, Madam Chair.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Salamat, Sec. Yung Quarry Rock po, na-suspend din po ba?
Yeah, naandun. Yes.
Andyan po, Madam Chair. Sec.
Quarry Rock, hindi ba Secretary Simato kasali sa listahan yung Quarry Rock? I heard it.
I heard a different rock kasi, Chair, baka mali naman ako, pero may narinig akong something rock, pero akala ko hindi Quarry Rock. Quarry Rock nga po ba yon, Sec? Kasama po sa na-suspend ba yung Quarry Rock?
Yung ito po ay...
Pwede bang ilagay na lang sa yung listahan? Pwede
Salamat,
bang ilagay
Chair.
sa video yung listahan para walang confusion?
Opo.
Chair, with the permission of Senator Risa.
Of course, Nancy.
Yeah, so pwede rin malaman kung kailan na-suspend yung quarrying? Kung ngayon lang ba yan?
Anong date?
Ngayon lang dahil sa bagyo or matagal na?
3 days ago, sabi ni Sec.
For all quarry.
December 2 po. December 2 po ito.
This year, 2020.
Opo, kasi yung Rizal province, sinuspend nila yung mga binigyan ng permit. Ito MPSA holder ito, sa amin naman nagbigay ng permit ito, sinuspensyon namin ito. Baka naman yung sinasabi na isang doon ay fall under the provincial permit.
Can you give us a list of those whom you suspended and the list of those who were suspended by the Rizal province? give the committee a list so that we will be clear about it because iba-iba pangalan, ang hirap ma-remember eh.
Madam Chairperson, pwede ho, just an additional request. Pwede din ho baka may history na na-suspend na pala yan dati. Tapos bumalik ho ulit yung operation. Can we just get parang history?
Yes.
Kung may ganong record na ho itong mga
So
quarrying
for the record, we
company.
will ask DNR to submit to us the list of those suspended na may MPSA and those who were suspended by the Rizal province to give us a complete list or any history about them. So we will know a written report. So we will furnish all the senators your report. Okay?
We will
Thank you,
comply,
Chair.
ma'am. We will comply, ma'am.
Okay.
And in fact, Chair,
Kung papayag si Senator Risa.
Yes.
of course, Naimi.
Yes, thank you very much. Mag-interject lang po ako. Alam po ninyo, nakahalos 10 taon akong governor at pabalik-balik lang yan, yung mga illegal quarry, sasarhan ng ilang buwan ng DENR. Babalik at babalik din. Kaya ang iniisip ko, which I'd like to share with everyone in my experience, it's important to engage with sustainable business. It's really important that the community in that area starts earning livelihood, employment, and profit. So in Masungi, for example, the sporting and trekking sites have become extremely fashionable and profitable. As a result, they're saved, they're rescued from all the illegal activities.
Ecotourism
That's right.
yan.
In my experience, the kaingeros who were allowed to interplant and start manning the forest cover have been very, very effective because they started making money both on their salaries as forest rangers, in effect, as well as planters of potatoes, strawberry, and so on. Ganon din sa Bakawan. Once the fishermen realized that this was in fact the breeding ground of crabs, clams, and high-value seafood, minamahal na nila yung mangrove area. So, palagay ko, DENR needs to take the next step, which is to engage in sustainable, resilient, and profitable business para yung mismong community doon, pangangalagaan at yung sinasabi ni Secretary kanina na yung survival rate ng ating mga reforestation project, pathetic. Pag nakita nila, kumikita sila, talagang mamahalin na nila yan at ipagtatanggol.
Hard rock.
Madam Chair, wala pa yung quarry rock sa listahan. Hard rock po.
Hard
Opo.
rock. Okay, iba pa yung dream rock. Maraming rock dito.
Maraming rock. Pero yung quarry rock, walang pa po.
Okay, you can ask now, Secretary Simatu. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And dagdag lang po na dokumento, kanina pinakita ko po yung DNR mismo, Administrative Order 33, tungkol sa Masungi Rock bilang strict nature reserve and wildlife sanctuary. And then bilang parang contrast doon, yung MPSA ng Rapid City, now suspended by the action of the Secretary. Pero Quarry Rock din, wala pa po sa listahan ng suspended. Kaya hindi po pwedeng mag-stand yung sinabi ni Pedro Mercado nung November this year na intact and free from human activity. And buhay pa yung tanong na binebenta ba ang lupa sa loob ng wildlife reserve, protected area sa Upper Marikina to private persons. And last but not the least ng dokumento, Madam Chair, may kopya po ako dito ng galing sa Provincial Government of Rizal, stoppage order on all quarrying and mining operations and related activities in the province of Rizal. Memo order nila number 2020, ayan po, -01, signed ni Governor Rebecca Inares.
Okay, Inares. So maybe it's time that we recognize the LGUs who are here from Rizal. We have here from the provinces. We have here from the province of Rizal, Dr. Casimiro Inares, the former mayor of Antipolo City, former governor of Rizal. Maybe he can share with us ano ginagawa nila. And of course, from province of Cagayan, the COS of Governor Mamba, Attorney Charo Mamba Villaflor, and the Penro Jeronimo Cabacan, representing Governor Albano of Isabela. So may we call on Dr. Casimiro Inares to make a statement, and then after him, the one from Cagayan, and the next one is the one from Isabela. So they will have a chance to explain themselves. Okay. We now recognize June Inares.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, honorable members of the committee, mga kapwa ko po bisita, good morning. Good morning po sa ating lahat. The governor, when Governor Nini got the invitation from this honorable committee, she was elated. She was excited to be here, and madami rin siyang gustong ipaabot at ipakiusap. Unfortunately, she's a bit under the weather. That's why she requested me to represent her. At salamat po na pinayagan niyo po ako na magsalita on her behalf. And Madam Chair, with your permission po, may kaunting, nabanggit ko po, madaming gustong iparating po si Gov. Nini, pero may kaunting inihanda po siyang sulat. Baka daw kasi may makalimutan ako. So kung maaari po ay basahin ko po yung maiksing mensahe lang po ni Gov. Nini. So with the permission of Madam Chair, mula po kay Gov. Nini, labis po ang pasasalamat ng mga Rizaleño sa ating mga senador dahil po sa wakas nabigyang pansin ng isang suliranin at hamon na matagal na pong inihihingi ng tugon ng aming pong lalawigan mula sa mga opisyal ng ating pamalaang nasyonal. Noon pong taong 2010, nanawagan na po ang aming pamalang panlalawigan sa pamalang nasyonal na atasan po kung maaari ang Department of Environment and Natural Resources or DENR na ipatigil na ang malawakang pagmimina at quarrying sa Rizal. Mahigit po na 6,000 hektarya ng lupain sa 8 bayan ng aming lalawigan ang kasalukuyan pong pinagmiminahan ng iba't ibang kumpanya sa bisa po ng Mineral Production Sharing Agreement or MPSA na obviously ipinagkaloob po ng pamalang nasyonal sa pamamagitan po ng DENR. At ilang ulit na po kaming dumulog sa ating pamalang nasyonal na kung maaari po ay kanselahin po ang mga ito bilang tugon sa hiling at panawagan ng aming mga kalalawigan. On the same year, 2010, dumulog din po kami kay Pangulong Noynoy Aquino, and back then I was still governor, so personally I also got the chance to let him know the sentiments of our people. At ipinasa po ni former President, ni President Aquino, or in-endorse sa ilang mga tanggapan tulad po ng DENR ang aming panawagan. Unfortunately, hindi po kami napagbigyan. I personally spoke to former DENR Secretary Monpahe and former GM Neric Acosta para ipakiusap nga po yung aming apela. And madami pong rason, valid reasons na ipinaabot po sila sa amin kung
In
bakit.
fairness to President Aquino, he issued the proclamation in 2010. In
Yes, ma'am.
2011, yung declaring you as a protected area, the Upper Marikina watershed. Oo, noong 2011. Oo.
Right. And we're also thankful for that proclamation, ma'am. Unfortunately, yung pong request po namin na higit pa ho doon sa proclamation, beyond doon sa proclamation, for several legal reasons, economical.
Palagay ko, kasalanan na yun ng DNR, hindi na ang President. Kasi minsan di alam ni President kung ano nangyayari, di ba?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, in-endorse po ni President Aquino kami sa DNR and LLDA. Unfortunately, doon po hindi nila na, kasi sila po yung nakakaalam sa usapin at umaasa po ang mga nasa itaas na makakuha ng recommendation mula sa DNR and LLDA. Unfortunately, that recommendation never came.
Yes.
At Fortunately, come 2016, pansamantala po kaming nakahinga, inihain po namin ang aming apela sa ating mahal na Pangulo, kay President Rodrigo Duterte, at pansamantala po kaming natuwa dahil at nagpasalamat na magdeklara po ng moratorium sa pagmimina at quarrying ang ating Pangulo. Subalit po noong 2017, naglabas po ang our late ang yumaong dating kalihim Secretary Gina Lopez ng isang kautusan na nagtanggal ng moratorium po na ito para sa mga malalaking quarrying activities, kabilang na rin po ang mga binigyan ng DNR ng MPSA sa lalawigan po ng Rizal. Ang dahilan pong ibinigay ni Secretary Gina Lopez ay ang karaniwan din pong ibinibigay sa amin ng pamalang nasyonal at mga nabanggit din po kanina earlier today. At allegedly, ang rason po ng nasyonal, kailangan daw po ng construction industry, lalo na po sa Metro Manila, ang mga aggregates na mula po sa aming lalawigan. Ganon din po ang dahilang ibinigay sa amin kung bakit hindi maaring permanenteng itigil ang pagmiminang ginagawa sa aming lalawigan. Kailangan daw po ito ng ating pambansang ekonomiya. Dagdag pa po ng mga kasama natin.
When there's a problem like that, I think makakadiscover sila ng, pag pinatigil, makakadiscover sila ng solusyon. Yung technical solution to the problem. You never say that there's no technical solution to the problem. So I don't believe in that. Alam mo, yung mga construction, they know how to solve problems pag kulang ang ibang raw material. Like for example, naglaging ban tayo, ginamit nila steel. Steel na ginagamit nila ngayon, they never use wood. So there is always a substitute if there's a problem. So hindi tayo naniniwala doon. Okay, go ahead, June.
Thank you po, Madam Chair. Dagdag din po ng DNR doon sa mga dahilan, mayroon din daw pong mga several studies sila na either they commissioned or mula po sa JICA or World Bank na allegedly nagpapatunay daw po na hindi ang pagmimina at hindi daw po ang quarrying ang dahilan kung bakit nagkakaroon ng malubang pagbaha sa ibang bahagi ng bansa, kasama na po ang Metro Manila at the province of Rizal. Madam Chair, hindi po namin hangaring questionin o kontrahin ang naturang pag-aaral po na isinagawa ng DNR and other reputable institutions. Ang hangarin lang po namin ay maiparating ang panawagan at paninindigan ng aming mga kalalawigan na kung maaari po ay itigil na ang mga malawakan at malaking pagmimina at quarrying sa Rizal. Ang kapangyarihang pong isagawa ito, yung pagpapatigil po ng mga malalaking pagmimina at quarrying sa Rizal, ay wala po sa kamay ng pamalang panlalawigan. Ito po ay nasa kamay ng pamalang nasyonal. Ito po ang idinudulog namin ngayong umaga sa ating mga pinagpipitagan ng mga senador. Panawagan po namin na mabigyan ng mas malawak na kapangyarihan ang mga lokal na pamalaan sa pagpapasya sa kapakanan at paggamit ng mga likas na yaman sa kanilang nasasakupan. Panawagan din po namin, Madam Chair, na magkaroon ng isang mas mabisang patakaran at mas maayos na pamamaraan kung saan mayroong higit na partisipasyon po ang lokal na pamalaan sa pagpapasya sa mga MPSA na iginagawad ng pamalaang nasyonal. Ang aming pong mga kababayan, ang una po kasing dumadanas ng bunga ng labis na paggamit ng mga likas na yaman sa aming lalawigan. At sana po marapatin po ninyo na mabigyan po kami ng mas malakas na tinig sa mga desisyon ng pamalang nasyonal sa larangan pong ito. Sa ngalan po ng mga Rizaleño, maraming salamat po sa pagkakataong ito.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, Dr. Inares, our former mayor of Antipolo City and former governor of Rizal, in behalf of his family. Alam nyo, maybe we should ask the Department of Agriculture to meet with you so we can make a standard process of what we are going to do. Kasi pag tinanong mo DNR, may in-issue daw kayong permit. Pag tinanong mo naman ang local, ang DNR ang nag-issue ng permit. So maybe we can really have a meeting of minds on how it's best to protect your protected area in Rizal. Oo. So rest assured that we will do that after this hearing. Okay? So we want now to recognize the representative of the province of Cagayan, Attorney Charo Mamba Villaflor.
Madam
Yes,
Chair.
yeah.
Madam
We
Chair, siguro,
recognize Senator Binay.
Madam Chair, siguro before we go to the province of Cagayan, sa Rizal lang po. Kasi
Oh.
ang naririnig kong isang issue dito sa Upper Marikina protected areas, may mga lugar ho dito na privately owned already. Para I think may mga lugar na titled siya. Totoo po ba ito?
Who will
Ay, ito
answer
kung
this?
si
Maybe
Governor
both
Mayor
of them
Inares
can
or-
answer. Maybe we will hear Governor Inares, former Governor Inares, and maybe we should hear Secretary Simati also on the opinion in the matter. Okay, June, are there tighter plans in Marikina watershed?
Yes,
Hindi ka madinig. There's no sound.
thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, yung po ang pagkakaalam namin, meron pong mga out of the 6,000 plus operating under MPSA, meron pong ilan doon na privately owned po.
So we will ask Secretary Simato if MPSA can be privately owned. Yes, Secretary Simato. Paki-unmute nga si Secretary Simato. Secretary Simato, we cannot hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Can you hear me now, ma'am?
Yeah, speak a little louder. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, ito po yung aking nakikita when I compared yung watershed before at saka ngayon, medyo marami ng mga bahay, subdivision dyan. So I'm planning, ma'am, na wala na ito. Ihinto na yung mga private, even privately owned, huwag maglagay ng structures dyan sa protected area. So ito po yung nakikita ko, lalong-lalo na sa mga quarrying, mining. Dapat bawal na dyan because ito yung...
Pwede ba nilang ariin yan? Protected area yan? Pwede
Madam
rin
Chair?
ariin.
Madam
Yeah?
Chair? I think
Yes.
po kasi ang naging problema, I think lalong-lalo na dito siguro sa bandang Antipolo, sa bandang Rizal, bago pa ho siya na-declare as protected areas, may mga lugar na ho na privately owned. Or
Yes.
Napatituluhan nila, yes.
Yes, napatituluhan
Pero
na.
kahit ari ng gobyerno, dito sa Las Piñas, nung gawin namin yung river drive namin, may isang lote na napatituluhan. Siya lang, bukod tangi sa lahat ng easement, 24 kilometers, may isang part na patituluhan. I think na one of those na naglagay. Napatituluhan niya yung aming easement. Binayaran din namin kasi titled, pinabayaran ko sa DPWH kasi kahit ko patanggal yung pagkatitulo, napakatagal nun, madidelay yung aming kalye. Kung siya lang, magkokaso pa kami. So, pinabayaran ko na lang. So, I think kahit na hindi dapat patituluhan, napapatituluhan sa DNR kasi that's part of the corruption and the bureaucracy, di ba? Na hindi natin maiiwasan ganyan talaga Oh.
And siguro, Madam Chair, baka maganda ding malaman, lalong-lalo na dito sa may Marikina Watershed Protected Area. I think malaki yan, di ba, yung Upper Marikina. Meron na ba kayong mapping kung alin doon yung supposed to be titled?
Yeah.
Na
No,
property?
after this hearing, I'll ask them to prepare that, to make a report to us. Yun ang ending ng hearing natin. So they will make a map of the protected area. Lalagay nila kung alin ang natituluhan, kung alin yung forested pa, kung alin yung merong ganon. Basta para alam natin na malinaw kung ano natira doon sa protected area. Okay, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Risa.
Salamat.
Senator Risa.
Yes, Madam Chair, salamat po. And sana bago matapos nga yung hearing natin, marinig din po natin yung mga civil society advocates, particular
Yeah, yeah.
dun po sa Rizal. Halimbawa, nandito po yung Masungi Reserve. And
Yeah,
also,
because
Madam Chair, yes,
I'm
Madam Chair.
looking at the list. Wala pa silang representative do sa aking list. Maybe you can forward.
Andito po si Ann Dumaliang po. Taga Masungi Reserve po siya,
We'll
Madam
call
Chair.
them. We'll just finish
Thank you, Madam Chair.
the
Yes
three
po.
provinces, and then we'll call naman the NGO.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Last point na lang po tungkol dun sa manifestation ni former Gov June na binasa nila para kay Gov Nini. Gusto ko po rin sanang i-move na kung pwede ang komite natin ay suportahan po yung kanilang panawagan na nandun sa sulat ni Gov Nini. Lalo na po, Madam Chair, dahil galing po sa kanila mismo mga constituents na paulit-ulit dumadanas ng baha dahil sa patuloy na quarrying at mining sa protected area nila, and isang dekada na rin po mula nung ipinanawagan nila ito sa national government, and paulit-ulit pa rin yung sako na sa kanila. So maybe it's high time na tugunan na ng positibo ng national government at sa suporta po sana na ating komite, Madam Chair. I so move. Salamat po, Madam Chair.
Governor Inares, can you forward the letter of your mom to us so that we can document that and make our support formal? Okay? You give us a copy of the letter of your mother. Okay?
Opo, we'll comply. Salamat
Yeah,
po.
should send me a copy of the letter of your mother. So we recognize now the one representing Cagayan. Yes, Joanna, Attorney Charo Mamba Villaflor, nandito ba siya? You're the one? Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, good afternoon po sa ating lahat, especially to the Madam Chairman Cynthia Villar, the senator members of the committee, as well as the other resource persons and guests. The governor extends po his apologies because Senator Pacquiao is currently in the province and meron po silang activity together right now. So, humihingi po ng paumanhin si Governor na hindi po siya personally attend. Similar to what the Governor mentioned po during the Senate committee hearing that was chaired by, on Public Works, chaired by Senator Manny Pacquiao, he would like to ask the Honorable Senate to help the province address this problem of ours. This has been happening every year. It's actually part of the lives of our people already. Because every year po meron kaming kalamidad. Sa 4 na taon po na gobernador po si Governor, 2017 lang po kami hindi pinahirapan o binayo ng kalamidad. 2 super typhoon, 2 major flooding na po. Last year, 3 months po kaming binabaha. This year, another major flood, which has not happened, sabi nga po nila, in the last 40 to 45 years. Since 2016, when we were battered by Super Typhoon Lawen, practically flattened the province, we have been conducting summits to help address ito pong problem ng province ng aming kababayan. And we've realized that this is not a problem of the province alone. Like what was mentioned by the honorable senators already, it has been happening and getting worse every year. So, nung pumisita po sa amin si Secretary Simatu, I think just last week or 2 weeks ago, siya na po mismo ang nakakita na marami ng kalbo na po ang mga forest surrounding the valley. So, imagine na lang po natin lahat po ng tubig na bumabagsak sa mountain ranges surrounding the Cagayan Valley. Sa amin lang po sa Cagayan lahat yan lalabas. Sabi nga po namin, kung alam po ba natin kung anong feeling ng imbornal? Madalas po, we don't really care where the water goes once we flush the toilet. We don't really care where the water goes when it drains down our pipes. Well, for Cagayanos, we know how it feels because all the water, all the trash, all the cut logs pass through our province, through our town, and goes out of out to the Babuyan Channel through the municipality of Aparri. So si Governor po really is pleading that this should be a concerted effort for all of the provinces and regions, and especially po through the help and the guidance of the national government. Sa amin po,
Yes,
yes,
yes, go ahead.
Opo. Sa amin po, the province, since the governor really is very supportive of protecting the environment, the province is supporting and actually created together with the DNR, the Anti-Illegal Logging Task Force. We, the governor, since 2016 has set up community monitoring. So meron po kaming agkay-kay sa Purok communities. Meron po kaming i-text mo kay Gov. Sila po mismo, ang mga tao po sa mga communities ang nagsusumbong kay Governor. Alam po ng DENR yan, alam po ng PNP yan, because puro po positive lahat. From the community where the illegal logging is being committed, positive po lahat, nahuhuli. Ang problema, madalas, yung mga tao behind the logging ang hindi nahuhuli. So that's why we have intensified, the provincial government has intensified really the operations. We are really funding the activities under our Peace and Order program. So ganun po talaga kalakas at ang suporta ng provincial government sa protection po ng ating environment, because at the end of the day, it is us, it is our people who suffer. Imagine po, since 2016 po kami nagbi-build back better. Since 2016 po, when we were battered by Lawin, we've had the build back better. And then every year, we try to adapt, we keep adapting. But until such time that our neighbors also adapt and also prioritize climate change adaptation, prioritize environmental protection, we will always be the Igbornal of the Cagayan Valley. So, ito po yung hinihingi po ng aming mahal na gobernador, ang buong suporta po ng lahat po ng stakeholders po ng Cagayan River Basin, especially po the support of the national government. And we are so thankful, actually. We are so thankful to the national government, to President Duterte, to Secretary Simatu, who have seen and who have heard our plea. And hopefully with the help of the Honorable Chairwoman and the members of the committee and the Senate, mas mapapalakas pa po yung pag-address natin dito po sa perennial problem po ng probinsya ng Cagayan. So ito po yung nais na ipaabot po ng ating mahal na gobernador po sa inyo po, Madam Chair.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, Attorney Charo Mamba Villaflor. I wish to reiterate na hindi naman lahat kaya yan ng national government. Kailangan din ng cooperation ng local government. At mabuti naman, at of course, nakapunta na sa inyo si si Secretary Simatu at nadinig nyo na yan. But mabuti rin na nalalaman din ni Secretary Simatu kasi malaki pong organization ng DNR, and hindi naman lahat na nangyayari sa baba ng DNR alam din ni Secretary Simatu. Kaya mabuti na didinig nila in front of our senators yung inyong stand on the matter, kasi ako rin medyo hindi naman lahat ng local government pare-pareho ang pagtingin sa protection ng environment. Merong mahihilig, merong hindi mahihilig. Kaya ako'y natutuwa na kayo rin pala ay mahilig. Kaya lang hindi kayo nagkakaintindihan ng ating Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Siguro sa aming bayan, mapalad ako kasi ako senador and nasa committee ako ng environment, kaya nagsisimula pa lang sila ng kalokohan, alam na ni Secretary Simatu kasi sinusumbong ko na. Pero yung mga ibang lugar, hindi na yan nalalaman ni Secretary Simatu, kaya kailangan sasabihin natin kay Secretary Simatu. That's why I'm giving you a chance to talk para madinig from your mouth kung ano yung mga complaint nyo, so that the LGU and the national government can work together better. So with that, we would like to also hear the representative of the province of Isabela in behalf of Governor Albano. It's Jeronimo Cabacan. Nandiyan ba siya? Iho.
Yes po, Madam Chair.
Ganunan mo. Ano na. Para ito ballpen. Yes, we recognize the representative Jeronimo Cabacan of Governor Albano. Okay.
Yes,
You can talk now.
Yes.
Yes.
Tanghali po sa ating lahat. Ang ating pong mahal na gobernador ay humihingi ng inyong pamanin dahil sa mga nauna ng commitment po sa bayan ng Ramon, Isabela. Kaya hindi po siya ating nakasama sa ngayon. Pero sabi nga niya, kayo na lang ang a-attend at makinig kung ano yung mga dapat nating gawin. Sabi nga po niya during the last RDC meeting, December 1st, nagkaroon po ng meeting ang naturang council upang malaman kung ano yung mga mitigating measures na dapat gawin ng especially ng probinsya ng Isabela para ma-mitigate po ang flooding na parati na lang na nag-akar sa probinsya ng Isabela. Taon-taon po ay nakakaranas tayo ng pagbaha. At kasabay din noon ay last November 24, 2020, naglabas ng executive order ang ating mahal na gobernador para patayuin po itong sinasabi na Build Back Better in support to the national government. The intention of this is to for the council, for the committee to identify various plans and programs that would mitigate the flooding in the province of Isabela. Ang trabaho po nito, mag-prepare ng plano, mag-implement, and at the same time, monitoring sa probinsya ng Isabela. And I would like also to inform the good chair na dito po sa probinsya ng Isabela ay active po ang Isabela Environmental Protection Task Force na mahigit na 10 taon na i-implement sa probinsya ng Isabela in order to safeguard our remaining forest. Katunayan nga lang po, ngayong umaga lang ay ang aming operatiba po ay were able to apprehend Nara flitches along the Pinakanawan River. Hindi pa namin to na compute sa ngayon, yung kung ilang volume ang naturang mga kahoy na aming nakumpiska ng ating mga kasamahan sa task force. So, lahat naman po dito, very supportive ang ating mahal na gobernador patungkol sa pagkonserba ng ating kalikasan. Patunayan nga po, last year, we're able to plant more than 1 million trees in a day. So, yan po, in collaboration with the barangays, sa different line agencies, ay nagawa po natin yung ating yung aspiration ng probinsya na makapagtanim ng 1 milyong puno sa isang araw. So, maaasahan po ng liderato ng ating Kamara ng Senado na sa probinsya ng Isabela po, makakalikasan po ating mga leader dito sa probinsya. Yun lamang po, Madam Chair, at maraming salamat po sa ating lahat.
Pwede ko bang hinga ng write-up kayo tungkol dun sa mga project nyo sa environment sa probinsya nyo para we will know. Oo. Yung sinasabi mo mga tree planting program, tsaka yung mga iba-iba pa, para we can document it para masama dun sa aming report. Oo. Para alam namin. I'm just curious na grabe ang baha sa Cagayan, tapos yung Isabela hindi masyadong naapektuhan. And yet, yung northern Sierra Madre protected area is in Isabela. Parang sa inyo nang galing yung protected area na yun eh, di ba? Is it because yung Cagayan River nasa Cagayan kaya masyadong apektado ang Cagayan? Or what? Or you're a better protector of the environment than Cagayan? Ano ba ang reason? Maybe Senator Amy can enlighten us kasi taga Northern Luzon siya. Amazed ako na hindi masyadong naapektuhan ng Isabela and yet ang Cagayan, grabe, di ba?
Ang totoo po, yung Magat Dam, ang problema, fini-fertilize niya at ini-irrigate lamang yung Isabela, hindi yung Cagayan. Pero yung tagos ng tubig nasa Cagayan. Kaya
Bakit? Because of the Cagayan River. Because
Opo,
of the
ang
Cagayan
tagos ng
River.
tubig, lahat nasa Cagayan. Yung Cagayan River, which was about 400 meters wide, naging 100, 150 na lang sa ibang lugar sa sobrang kipot. At hindi na na-dredge, hindi na na-maintain yung mga riverbank. And in the meantime, yung Isabela, masama rin naman yung tama dun sa northern side, yung katabi ng Cagayan.
Which is the katabi ng Cagayan? Kaninong distrito yon?
Doon sa northern side po, andun talaga tinamaan.
Sino ba yung Northern Isabela? Kaninong distrito yon? Apat kasi, sino ba yung District 1? Kawayan? Kawayan? Yung bang Kawayan? Or yung kay Albano? Yung kay Albano? Yung district ni Albano ang tinamaan. Kasi ano yan eh, 4 na distrito, hindi ba? Isa doon sa 2D. 3 D. Tapos isang Santiago at saka Albano, 5 distrito.
Yung sa northern side, sa Kawayan side po.
Kawayan. Not yung district ni Governor Albano. Ano ang capital noon? Meron. Malaking syudad doon eh. Ano yung capital nung kay Albano? Ilagan. Hindi tinamaan yung Ilagan. Ang tinamaan Kawayan. Ano?
Ilagan.
Ilagan ang tinamaan, right?
Ilagan, hindi Kawayan.
Tinamaan, sorry.
Ilagan. So, buti na lang na andun ang gobernador.
Having said that, yung Tuguegarao, binaha din talaga.
Tuguegarao. Grabe daw ang Tuguegarao.
Yung sa northern, grabe.
Anyway, so can you make a report so that we can include that together with the report of the Rizal province and the Cagayan province? We have another rin dito from municipality of San Mateo province of Rizal. May representative si Mayor Cristina Diaz. Can we hear from him? It's Eduardo Daraod. Yes. Is he still here? Nandito pa ba siya, yung representative ni Mayor ng San Mateo?
What we are seeing, what the Commission is seeing is that, of course, the overall direction would come from TEC because of its policy-making functions. And the operationalization of which would still be launched with the Commission as provided under our laws.
Who's that?
You mentioned earlier some of the provisions.
Can you tell the other committee that they are in our hearing? Tawagan mo. Yung hearing yata yun ng higher ed eh. Si Gatchalian. Ano ba yun? DepEd o higher ed?
Madam Chair.
Senator Amy, binuksan mo daw yung hearing ng DepEd. Anyway, is the representative of San Mateo Rizal still here? Or no more? So we will hear now the NGOs. We'll hear first the representative of Project Manager of Masungi Geo Reserve, Ms. Ann Dumaliang. Can we hear now?
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Meron po akong hinandang presentasyon para sa inyo ngayon. I will be sharing my screen.
Yes, okay.
Madam Chair, baka magsialisan lang yung LGU kasi ang layo ng biyahe po nila.
Okay, sige. Okay na. If you have questions ba?
I just had a quick question po.
Okay,
Kasi,
can we hold the presentation of
sorry
Masumi?
po kay
Sir.
Ms. Dumalya.
Senator Amy would want to ask question from the representative of Cagayan or Isabela.
Lahat po, kasi one of the things that came up during the different visits to the afflicted and the hard-hit municipalities was the lack of clear-cut protocols for the release of water from the dams. So I was very curious, what is the role of the DENR in the warnings for these areas? It became clear that the Pag-asa was supposed to tell them kung orange ba yun o yellow flood warning sa DOST. Nagkaturoan din sa NIA at NAPOCOR, sila yung in charge ng dam. Parang walang papel yung DENR. Tapos sa bandang huli, yung LGU, lahat sinisisi yung LGU na hindi nag-evacuate. Ano ba talaga yung tamang protocol? Parang malabo sa atin.
We'll ask Secretary Simatu. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much for that question, Madam Chairman. The role of the DNR, nagbigay po ng mapa for them to prepare for anything that happens. Meron po yung flood, ano po doon, map na flood prone area, meron po yung landslide prone area. Noong last time I was in Tuguegarao with the President, Madam, kinumpare ko po yung satellite photo with that of the hazard map na inisyo ng DNR. Magkatugma po kung ano yung nakalagay dito sa aming hazard map, yun po ang nangyari na talagang yun ang na-flooded naman. Doon rin ang nag-collapse ng doon sa Nueva Vizcaya na landslide prone area. Doon pa yung doon namatay ng 4, which is exactly po na nakalagay sa amin. So, meaning po, ang role ng DNR po rito sa may mga incoming typhoons po ay yung mga barangay captains ay kailangan nandyan na po yung yung aming mga DNR nagbibigay na ng ng mga announcement na dito sa prone area na ito ay kailangan mabakwit na kayo. In fact, yan po ay plano ko po kasi maglalagay kami ng signage for every barangay, for every town na ito po yung flooded area, prone flooded area, ito rin ang prone na landslide area. Maglalagay na kami ng signage doon, para paglabas yung announcement ng Pag-asa na mayroon itong rainfall na ito ay susceptible ang landslide dito sa area na ito, ay war na po ito. So, para preempt lang po yung role ng DNR po yan.
Yes, I think kasi nagkulang talaga tayo sa information. Yung OCD, parang after the fact na lang sila nag-react. At yung mga LGU, ang sabi nila, wala naman daw typhoon signal. Wala man lang flood warning kung ano mang kulay yon. And so the awareness daw was so low. Hindi naman maganda yung finger pointing sa bandang huli. Sana hindi na maulit kung signage ba ang kailangan, kung evacuation practice ang kailangan, kung klarong isolation centers ang kailangan. Siguro maliwanag na. Tsaka may mga lugar na taon-taon naman binabaha. Hindi ko alam kung makulit lang kami dati sa LGU o di kaya yung DENR, dapat siguro yung no build or no reside zones, iklaro na kasi sige pa rin ang pagpapatayo. Maliban sa illegal na quarry, mining, logging, meron pang talagang nagpapatayo ng pilitan sa mga lugar na hindi na talaga dapat.
Ma'am, mayroon po kaming no build zone areas dito sa hazard map. Ngayon, if there are some people, private people na private pagpatayo ng building, they ask an ECC for this, ay hindi grant ng ECC ito sa basta prone areas, flood prone area or landslide prone area. Bawal po magpatayo doon. So, kami po nagbibigay ng ECC permit ito dito sa DPWH na hingi ng building permit. So,
can you make a book on that?
Yeah,
Parang
kasi
gumawa ng isang libro para
isang protocol na
anong bayan,
maliwanag.
ano yung ganon. Can you do that? Is that feasible with your geohazard map nyo na makagawa tayo ng ganon? Para ipamimigay natin sa bayan, there are only 1,600 towns and cities. Kaya na natin mag-publish ng book na para alam nila kung ano yung guidance. Can we do that?
Mayroon na pong mapa sila na nabigay na po natin down to the barangay Pangampo itong no-build zone.
Meron kayong binigay pero baka hindi naintindihan.
Hindi naintindihan. At saka, Secretary, itong no-build zone, sa pagkalam ko, ang enforcement niyan, tulad ng sinabi nyo, ang DENR naman ang nagbibigay ng ECC. But as we know very well, whether in Tacloban or even in Pagudpud, Ilocos Norte, kung saan nagtatag ng mga kung ano-anong mga bungee towers at mga hotel, bigay naman ng DENR ng ECC. Alam naman nila maaksidente yung mga tao dyan. Question of time lang. So siguro yung enforcement, kasi kayo rin naman ang no-build zone.
Baka magulo pa yung barangay, kailangan mayor na lang, di ba? Baka mas marunong ang mayor. Kami nga, Metro Manila, yung barangay namin, di naiintindihan yan. I think baka yung mga mayor tapos merong aral.
Yeah, dapat may sanctions. Yung DENR, mahilig rin mamigay ng ECC na alam naman na nakaka-nervous yung lugar, dapat bawal talaga eh.
Kasi in fairness, ang DNR naman siguro ikaw, Secretary Sumato, naintindihan mo yan, pero sa baba, wala naman silang pakialam kung ano mga ginagawa.
Pinagsasabihan ko ba may mga nasa Senros, Penros, including Ilocos.
Yung mga DNR mo nga, nagagalit ako, pumupunta doon sa bayan namin, nagagawa akong kalye. Pinipigil pa yung kalye. Sabi ko, alam ko naman ang responsibility ko kasi daw magpuputol ng puno. Alam ko naman, papaltang ko lang yung puno di ba? Pag halimbawa tinamaan ng kalye yung puno, di ba? Pwede mong gawin yung kalye basta papaltan mo yung puno sa nearby na where it should be located. Alam ko naman yun Pati ako, siguro nasumbungan lang ng mga, ewan ko, pati kami ginaganon alam naman namin ang responsibility namin minsan kasi yung DNR ko ano-ano lang ang ginagawa
Mabuti si Secretary Simato sumusugod. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Pwede na yung NGO.
So siguro we should teach na rin yung ating mga local government about this danger para alam nila. Kasi pag nagkaroon ng danger na ganyan, sisisihin kayo Diba?
That's right.
I give instructions to my Sandros po, ma'am, na before ang mga typhoon ay mag-ano na sila, pupunta na sila doon sa mga prone areas talaga. Instructions ko po yan.
Sige.
Don't worry, ma'am, sa Ilocos Norte, hindi na.
Mukha buti na lang Ilocos Norte, walang ganyan. Diba? Baka naman sa alaga rin sa bayan, diba? Baka mas maalaga ka kasi kami, dati binabaha kami, ngayon hindi na. So minsan, it's the effort of the local also that can help, diba? Okay, we'll hear now the presentation of the Masungi Chio Reserve. Okay? Thank you. Sige na, you can proceed.
Maraming salamat po. Bago po kami magsimula sa aming presentasyon, nais ko pong magbigay pasasalamat sa ating Senate Committee sa pag-aanyaya sa amin na makilahok sa ating hearing ngayong araw. Gusto ko rin i-acknowledge ang aming mga counterparts sa DNR at sa mga ibang CSOs na narito na kasama namin sa pakikitunggali para sa kalikasan dito sa Pilipinas. I'm here before you today really not just as an advocate or a conservationist, but also as one of the millions of youth and citizens of this country that care deeply about the environment, and as one of the representatives of the communities who are first to feel the impacts of environment degradation and the disasters caused by the loss of our forest cover. But most of all, Madam Chair and our Senate committee, I'm here before you as a representative of my forest rangers who are out there in the field, day in and day out, night and day. Bagyo man o walang bagyo, may speculator man o walang speculator para manguna sa pangangalaga ng ating kalikasan. At para rin protektahan ang milyong-milyong Pilipinong nakasalalay sa ating mga kagubatan. Narito kami ngayon para makilahok sa talakayan tungkol sa Typhoon Ulysses. Sabi nga ni Senator Villar, ito ang 21st typhoon natin ngayong taon at alam natin na bilyong-bilyong piso ang nawala natin dahil sa sakunang ito, not including the loss of business, not including the amount and the millions of pesos spent by the LGUs for relief because disasters like this continue. And we know that this will continue to worsen because when this used to be just an occurrence that happens every hundreds of years, every 50 years, we know from our recent trends that this has been happening every decade. And with the worsening of climate change, we know that this will happen maybe every 5 years, every year. And we have to prepare for that. Now, there are many solutions that have to be done in a holistic manner, both downstream and upstream. Today, we'd like to talk about upstream efforts, rehabilitation efforts, restoration efforts that really also fall into the more holistic approach and are needed in a more holistic approach when we talk about disaster risk mitigation. A bit of a review, these are figures that we obtained from the World Bank. There are also several others created by the IUCN and the Asian Development Bank. But we have various studies that show that the integrity of our forests are truly important in risk mitigation. A few simple figures that we found there, we can invite them later on to elaborate on these perhaps. But they aid in water flow regulation, reduction of flood water generated in watersheds by up to 47%. They help in erosion control. In fact, when you have reforestation on slopes of more than 30%, this helped mitigate the sediment outflow, siltation rin po to, by 7 to 100 times compared to bare soil. And it's really a low-cost infrastructure alternative compared to gray infrastructure. So of course, you can use this in conjunction, but we can't deny that there are also things that the green infrastructure can do at a lower cost way. So say for instance, when you have cocoa mats worth 3 million pesos per hectare to put up, reforestation costs about 40,000 to 60,000 hectares. Napakalayo po ng figures. When we're talking about dams that cost billions to create and billions more to maintain, napakalaki po ng difference in cost. And so green infrastructure should really be considered as a serious alternative and a serious part of disaster risk mitigation. Kami po ngayon ay narito kasama ninyo para magbigay po ng mga halimbawa o pananaw mula sa front lines of conservation efforts here in the Upper Marikina watershed. Our area is only an hour and a half away from Metro Manila, and we're found at the watershed divide. Because we're at the watershed divide, what happens to Masuni actually impacts not just the Marikina River Basin, the Marikina River, the Pasig River, and Manila Bay, napakalayo ng takbo, but also another watershed, including water flow going out to Laguna Divide. So para po makita ninyo ito, we have, of course, the highland areas, the upland areas. Makikita nyo it's in red here in the map. All of the water from up here really flows down, going to the floodplains, to the rivers, to the city. So lahat po ng nangyayari dito sa taas, makaka-apekto po sa nangyayari sa baba. May it be when we're talking about amount of water coming down, the rate of runoff, gaano kabilis yung pagbaba, o gaano karami pong siltation or sediments yung bumababa. Ito po ang aming pinanggalingan at sinimulahan. Ito po ang itsura ng aming lugar noong 1996 by virtue actually of a joint venture agreement with DNR for conservation development. At pagkatapos po ng 2 dekadang pangangalaga, ganito na po yung naging itsura ng ating lugar. 2 dekada po, it can be done in a lifetime. in less than a lifetime. Pwede po nating balik ang likas na cover na ating protected areas or conserved areas. At nito naman pong 2017, inatasan po kami ni Secretary Gina Lopez na tumulong na mag-restore ng 2,700 hectares of land surrounding Masuni G Reserve gamit po ang mga pondong nalakap namin in sustainable tourism. So ito po ang ating ongoing project. Ito po ay parte rin ng Upper Marikina Watershed. At kung makikita niyo po, buhuan po siya. May kaunting pine trees, but there's a lot left to be done. No? And we really need help in making sure that this comes back to a climax forest. So, titignan natin, ito po yung Masuni G Reserve dito sa baba. Relatively improved forest cover. You can see the entry of urbanization coming in to where it shouldn't be. And the area on top is what you are supposed to be reforesting. Makikita niyo po dito from 2017 when we started to 2020, meron na rin po kaming ilang mga halaman na natanim at patuloy na pinapangalagaan. Right now, we are at 55,000 trees, not just planted, but continuously nurtured and continuously protected. At tungkol naman po sa lugar na aming napapatrol at nasisiyasat when it comes to monitoring, we would maybe be not present in only about 1,000 hectares at this point. The rest of the area are a little bit challenging and we really need help also when it comes to enforcement at pagpapatanggal nga ng mga land speculators who may be problematic. The following, marami po tayo na-accomplish this year kasi ang dami environmental opportunism tapos walang turismo. So we were able to establish more than 15 kilometers of monitoring trails. We were able to install 11 park ranger stations strategically located. Madalas po nilalagay namin to sa mga entry points, sa mga madalas di pinapasukan ng illegal activities, by the roadside po, which leaves protected areas vulnerable to entries of different kinds. We've installed a lot of signages, checkpoints, and surveillance devices in the hopes of monitoring the place adequately. At hindi ko na papasadahan to, pero sa ngayon meron po tayong mga 100 park rangers that we involve in conservation full-time. We have many school partners, government partners, research partners who help us in restoring the area. And for all of that, we have been given also, we're happy to be granted awards by the United Nations for Destination Stewardship, for financing and resourcing for conservation. Our financing gap was at 80% for conservation. And most recently, we got an award for the Water Changemaker Award, which is precisely given to organizations that were able to overcome inertia when it comes to protecting our watersheds and water resources. Ngayon, ano po ba, despite all of these things, para mapausad natin yung Masungi, para maprotektahan natin yung Upper Marikina watershed, ano po ba yung mga dapat nating pagtaunan ng pansin? Ano po yung nagiging challenges namin on the ground? Number one po, professional squatting. I will make this very short. There are many challenges, but the top ones are these. There's professional squatting as a practice. This is when we have powerful individuals, retired enforcement officers. We encountered 4 of them this year, claiming large tracts of land. Only this October, we had former police general fence out our rangers from 1,000, attempt to fence out our rangers from 1,000 hectares of land. And right now, they are still here, Madam Chair, and our Senate committee. Nagdadagdag pa sila ng mga armed guards, continuously harassing us on the ground, and making it difficult for us to pursue reforestation efforts. Meron tayong...
Tapos yan, bakit may mga dala kayong malalaking almas?
Ay, protection lang namin yan.
Oo, ano naman gagawin niyo dito sa lupa dito?
Pag-alagaan itong property ng aming client.
Property ng client niyo to.
Property ng gobyerno, protected area to. Bawal yung andito kayo. Si ano lang po yung representative ng management ng ano. Inaabala niya ang proyekto ng gobyerno. Tanggalin niya.
So hanggang ngayon po ang binabandera nila sa amin, pag may court order na kayo, pwede nyo na kaming paalisin. Pero we have to recognize that when we're talking about professional squatting, the court will take how long? Years? to eject these people and issue an order.
Madam Chair,
By
can I
then,
quickly ask a follow-up question of Ms. Anne?
opo, Ms. Risa.
If I may, Madam Chair. With the permission of the Chair, Ms. Anne, yung binanggit nyo bang retired enforcement officer o general, sila ba yung sa Green Atom, yung subsidiary ng Rublu Corporation, si retired General Luizo Tikman? Sila ba yon?
Correct po, Senator Risa.
All right, noted. Thank you, Ms. Anne. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, so they continue to do this, and we'll never know. No, so much can happen in a month's time. They can build many structures in a month's time. It will be more costly to remove them if they're allowed to stay. That's precisely why for us these are time-sensitive incidents that must be resolved as soon as possible. Meron din tayo mga success stories naman. This also happened this year when we had 30 allegedly ex-PNP officers descend on the site and claim that they will be building a settlement for 60 people. So extreme. Just one day they're here and they're planning to build something inside the watershed. And we're fortunate because we had DNR act with us to resolve this issue. They were able to find the process to be able to remove them. Apparently, pwede po raw silang, what they revealed to me is pwede po palang mag-issue ng notice to vacate ang DNR and also mobilize enforcement agencies to make this happen at the soonest possible time.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes.
Senator Dina,
With your
yes.
permission. Miss Anne, dun sa previous case, wala pang response yung DENR?
Wala pa po eh. Nandito pa po sila ngayon on the side.
Okay. Maybe we can get
Meron pero ano po, actually, the last that they were able to order was a show cause order to this General Tikman. This was, when did this happen? About a month ago, when they were able to issue this.
But on the government side, wala pang nagsasabi sa kanila na parang you cannot occupy that because this is a protected area to begin with.
Wala pa po.
Wala pa. Madam Chair, maybe we can get a response from DNR.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, General Secretary Simatu. Yes.
We have pending bill, the Enforcement Bureau, and this will really be very useful dyan sa problema na yan because I am intending, once na ma-approve yung Enforcement Bureau namin, I'll put that bureau right there, dyan sa may area na yan. Doon na yung maging so that the enforcement capability po, ano problema po, nakakausap po yung management yan, their problem really is, wala silang capability na magano kasi sabi nila na may mga armas, may mga wala na magagawa yung mga When I went there, talagang sumabay sa akin yung mga army doon, pumunta doon, nakalis rin namin yung mga naka-barbed wire doon, talagang inalis namin yung mga barbed wire na yan. Pero mga pag wala na naman kami doon, nandiyan na naman.
Maybe you can construct an office there.
Your Honor, if we have already this Enforcement Bureau, right there and then I will put the bureau there. Magpatayo na kami ng building namin doon.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Ito po yung plano ko po. For the moment na ma-approve na yan, so I would like to ask for the assistance of the senators for the immediate approval of our Enforcement Bureau, and we will really make really that area na if that is a protected area.
Ano yung pa-approve mo sa amin, General Simatu, Secretary Simatu? Ano yon?
Secretary Simatu?
Yung Enforcement Bureau po na
Wala ba kayo noon?
Pag ma-approve na po ito, ang building ko na gagawin ng bureau na yan, doon na mismo sa lugar na yan.
Wala ba kayo nung Enforcement Bureau, Secretary Simatu? Do we have to legislate that? What? I cannot understand that. Can you clarify?
For the formation of a bureau under the Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Wala kayong Enforcement Bureau? Wala?
Wala po kami diyan. In fact,
Is that a
yung mga-
legislation? Is that a legislation?
Opo ma'am, nandiyan na sa bill, may bill na
Okay.
sa
I will,
House, and mayroon na rin yata sa
Madam
upper
Chair?
house.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
So sana ko matulungan ninyo kami kasi pinapatay na yung aming mga forest protection officers eh. Ayan, sa Sierra Madre, Palawan. Buti wala
Senator
pang
Binay, what's your comment?
Ma'am.
May bill daw sa House, may counterpart na ba yun sa Senate?
Yes, Madam Chair, I filed po a counterpart.
Okay, we will hear that. We will hear that as soon as
Yes.
possible.
Madam Chairperson, gusto ko lang itanong kay Secretary kasi immediate po yung need.
Can they not do? They cannot. Can they not do it now, or they have to wait for the legislation?
Ma'am,
Baka gawa na lang natin ng office na
ako,
temporary.
Pwede na ako mag-put up talaga ng doon, temporary, para...
Temporary. Tapos pag napasa namin yung batas, mag-put up ka ng permanent, di ba?
Ay, sana ma'am,
merong mga nabibili ngayon, pwede ba yon? Bibigyan kita ng, may nabibili ngayong mga yung smart
Prefab.
houses, prefab, yung container van, para lang may opisina sila doon. Then afterwards, you can put a permanent one after.
Ay ma'am, we're very thankful ma'am for that because really, even wala pa yung bureau na yan, we can generate some personnel na gagamitin ko para dyan.
Oh, I'll send you a container van. Kasi yan ang ginagamit namin. Temporary office lang. Oo, on-site. Oo. Ituro lang sa akin.
Oo ma'am, mangyayari, pending the approval of that bureau, hindi kasi walang capability yung aming DNR personnel na maghawak ng baril.
I'll donate you a container van na they call it smart houses, yung ginagamit sa ginagamit ngayon sa isolation facilities, may ganun eh. So we'll give you one temporary, and then when we are able to pass the bill, then you can make a permanent one. Okay?
Madam Chair.
So,
Madam
I
Chair.
will just have to know where to bring it. I will ask you tell me where to bring it. What
Madam
place?
Chair.
Doon lang sa harapan ng Masongi, yung...
I don't know nga this Masungi eh, so you have to tell me.
Madam Chair.
Other side of the highway. So nag-squatter sila yung other side of that highway. Umakyat na kami doon, nakita ko yung area na pinalagyan ng bakod. So, yung malapit na ilalagay ko doon, mga tao ko, para...
okay.
Pero Secretary, may urgent need na puntahan nyo ngayon yung I think 1 month na ata silang nagsasquat doon sa protected area. Baka naman pwedeng mapuntahan yon at kung kailangan yung magsama ulit ng mga police or military para umalis sila doon.
I will ask yung PNP na Region 4A, no? I know the PNP head of Region 4A. I will write a letter.
Because we have a memorandum of agreement actually sa PNP at saka AFP na magbigay sila ng support sa amin. So I can ask some personnel from the Army, some personnel from the PNP para matulungan maano rin yung aming presence doon. So that
Sige. Anuhin mo to kaya
sa management ng Masongi para matulungan sila.
Sino ang i-coordinate sa iyo, Secretary Simatu? Para sasabihin ko doon sa PMP. Sino? Sino ang kokontakin sa iyo?
Ito yung ating Undersecretary Leonardo, dati rin sa PNP po ito. And so,
ano pangalan?
Natin? Undersecretary Leonardo po.
Secretary
Leonardo po.
Leonardo. Okay.
Madam Chair, last
DNR.
point na lang.
Okay, sige.
Madam Chair, last point na lang po siguro. Kasi Madam Chair, siguro alam ko when di ba sa Amerika, meron yung mga Yosemite Forest Park, Sequoia Forest Park. Hindi ho kaya feasible yung ganitong setup para sa ating mga watershed. Wherein meron talagang nakatutok na isang grupo dun sa watershed, dun sa mga protected area management natin. Kasi nakita
Meron
naman
naman
ho
sila
natin, di ba ho, like kunyari sa Yosemite, pag pumunta kayo doon, talagang may Yosemite Forest Park na nakatayo na siya yung nagmamanage kung anong portion doon for tourism, anong
Meron
portion
sila
doon yung
eh.
wala
Meron
ho,
silang protected area superintendent eh. Oo. And yung Upper Marikina, si Forester Mercado, sabi niya malinis daw ang Upper Marikina. Supposed to be, hindi niya alam na hindi pala malinis yung Upper Marikina. Kasi sabi niya kanina, wala daw problema ang Upper Marikina. Nadinig mo, siya yun eh. Siya ang head ng Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Landscape. Forester Isidro Mercado, nadinig mo pa, PhD? Ayan o. Nandito.
Pero baka, Madam Chairperson, kasi yung Penro ho, parang masyadong malaki din yung scope ng trabaho nila eh.
Pero siya ang general manager. I'm sure there are people under him. Di naman siya yung nag-iisa dyan, di ba? Siya ang head eh. Superintendent ng Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Landscape. Siya nga nagsabi na okay daw, wala daw problema. Siguro hindi niya tingin problema yan. It's a matter of perception. Oo. Parang yung aming superintendent ng gumagawa ng subdivision namin, tingin niya malinis yun. Ako, dumi-dumi ako. So, it's a matter of perception and training, di ba?
Yes, Madam Chairperson, maybe can we just get the opinion of Miss Anne? Kung feasible ba yung ganong setup?
We can ask Miss Anne to answer Senator Binay. Miss Anne, what is your opinion? Yes.
Yung National Park Service setup po, this is actually something that's also pushed by a lot of young people here in the Philippines already. Having a national parks setup really also makes these places visible to a lot of people. No? Ngayon kasi they're all in very remote locations and DNR is working on them. But in terms of engaging the larger public and caring for these places, minsan we fall short of that. Yung sinasabi ni Senator Binay, maganda rin po talaga na merong management group that's situated directly on the ground that is competent and able to monitor these locations. Because for instance, the Upper Marikina watershed pa lang po, protected landscape, that's already over 26,000 hectares. And there have to be regular patrols happening. There have to be someone that people can immediately talk to on the ground, ideally, para ma-resolve po agad in a timely manner and may maayos na incident response sa mga concerns kagaya nito. So that is one way of taking it long-term. We've seen this at work in the United States and in many other countries. It would be good to try out.
So, what is the opinion of the Secretary of DNR about that?
Well, ma'am, in the 2021 budget, this is the first time na magkaroon ng budget ang protected areas. I think,
First time ba to na meron kayong budget?
2021 po, ma'am, yung ating so that
Walang budget before ang protected area?
ito po yung organization po ng mga mga personnel para diyan sa po, ma'am, sa may
Ngayon lang 2021 nagkaroon ng ganyan, wala before? Wala kayo before?
Pero under-equipped yata yung park superintendent and, the people who are actually...
Kasi alam mo, ang nangyari sa DNR, ang laki ng budget nila sa national greening. Yung national greening naman, hindi popular sa mga legislator kasi alam nila na it's not succeeding. Sana, baka mamaya, doon nyo na lang, baka mas attractive pa sa legislator yung sasabihin mo, mag-create ka ng mga management ng protected areas. Baka mas ano pa yun kung doon nyo dadalhin ng budget instead of national greening. Because I had a very hard time na i-defend yung national greening nyo kasi baka mas maganda pa nga yung protected area, may management capability. Tapos part of the work is not greening in the protected area kesa yung one national greening program. Kasi Di ba kinat na ang budget ng national greening nyo? Hindi popular sa mga legislator yung national greening. Kaya maybe we can do, Secretary Sima, to do another model na they can appreciate better. Baka yung ganyan, yung gagawin mong protected area park and then merong management. Baka mas gusto nila yun na and then the manager is responsible. Pag in-inspection mo yung protected area, pag pangit, edi siya bahala doon. Baka better yun than a generalized national greening program. Kasi palagi nakakat yung budget ng national greening mo kasi parang it's so vague. It's so vague. So maybe
Madam
you can
Chair?
do another model. Another model.
Yes, po.
Yes.
We are revising, ma'am, yung national greening program because masyadong maluwag, masyadong maano po.
Oo, yeah. Baka mamaya i-identify mo na lang. There are only protected area 107, 94 plus 13. Baka i-divide mo na lang yung national greening mo doon sa 107 na yon na merong management. Baka mas ma-defend pa natin yon. And then ipakita mo sa kanila na maganda yung natin, mga protected area. Baka better yon. And generalized national greening. Yes, Senator Risa. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kung sinusulong ito ni na Ms. Ann sa Masungi Geo Reserve and if Sen Nancy will draft such a bill, I would be glad to co-author with her or work on such a bill with her tungkol po doon sa National Park Service. Bagamat sinusuportahan ko pa rin yung National Greening Program. Madam Chair, gusto ko lang idagdag yung boses ko doon sa note of concern and protection na in-express ni Sen Nancy at ng Chair kanina about protection for yung mga people on the ground dito sa Masungi Geo Reserve. Sinabi na rin mismo ni Sexy Matu kanina na pinapatay yung kanilang forest rangers at alam po natin na yung mga grupo tulad ng Masungi Geo Reserve at mga individual tulad ni na Miss Ann could even at times be placed in danger. We're talking just about the example of Green Atom, Rublu Corporation, si retired General Tikman. At napanood naman po natin yung video kanina na pinakita ni Miss Anna. Medyo mataas yung boses nung kinausap nila at may dalang mahabang armas din. So I join the chair's concern at yung Sen Nancy and thank Sexy Matu na they will take immediate action. Importante to. And yes, it may be urgent ngayon din na siguruhin na ligtas lahat ng mga tao on the ground. Both ang Masungi Geo Reserve at yung DENR on the ground. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much po. Thank you.
Okay. So do you still have presentation, Miss Ann?
I still do. If I may just add for a little bit more.
Yes.
Secretary Simatu, maaasahan po ba naming magkaroon ng notice to vacate itong grupo na to? Kasi every week na lang po merong bagong harassment actually coming from them now that we're already on this topic.
Yes, I'm directing already Yusek Leonardo to address this concern immediately.
Wala po silang pinapakitang authority of any sort.
What?
Wala po silang pinapakitang authority of any sort. Not from AR, not from any other agency that's actually valid. So sana po
kaya ni Yusek Leonardo yan. Kaya ni Yusek Leonardo yan. I will be going there immediately.
Madam Chair, pwede ko tanungin si Ms. Ann?
Coordinate with the PNP head of Region 4A para tumulong kay Yusek Leonardo na makalagay tayo ng permanent, temporary site dyan na para may tao palagi na makakatulong dun sa Masungi Geo Reserve. Okay, we'll do that.
Madam Chair, pwedeng tanungin si Ms. Ann anong klaseng harassment ang ginagawa linggo-linggo? Madam Chair?
Yes, you ask her.
They come to Senator Risa, they come to patrol the area regularly. Sometimes they come at night and they do not speak with us. They just move around the area. When we do try to talk to them, napaka-harsh po ng kanilang words. Ako po mismo sinabihan nila, nakakalad ka rin nila ako kapag nakita nila ako. And the same happens to
It's
my
clear
park ranger.
harassment, Madam Chair. Pati park rangers.
Yes, their president actually told me na when we go past a certain area, they will not hesitate to hunt us down. So very clear na iba po ang kanilang motives in the place. So we really hope for everyone's help. Kailangan po talaga namin yung tulong ninyo para matigil na po ito.
Hunt you down, Miss Anne. Madam Chair, sobrang matatapang na ugali at pananalita. I mean, Miss Anne, I have to ask, no, is it possible that some employees of the DENR are on the take? That's why ganitong mga land grabbing schemes, ganitong mga harassment continue to proliferate?
That's quite a difficult question, Senator Risa, but
Alright.
the rules are quite clear on the procedure and what has to be done. And it's a matter of execution when it comes to responding to these matters, di ba po? They're always here and communicating about them. Meron po actually satellite office yung DNR niyo. Yeah. Kaya lang, konti lang din po siguro yung tao nila kaya hindi po napupuntahan doon madalas. But it might be worth looking into that.
Certainly, Madam Chair and Miss Anne, sobrang disturbing po yung ganyang mga actuations nitong Green Atom, Rublu Corporation,
Miss Anne,
ni Retired General Tikman.
why don't you file a case? Ayaw nyo mag-file ng case against them?
Well, pwede naman po sanang mag-file ng case, but these are quite urgent. And it's quite
No, we will try to help you, but siguro maganda rin na may case against them kasi para meron tayong mas strong na sa kanila, di ba? Since you are an NGO, you can file a case para lang may basis yung ating legal actions against them. But we will help you. I will, after this, I will try to help you. And I will donate an office for DNR and the PNP para may permanent kayo dyan. Temporary office. But you have to file a case kasi minsan ito ang tatapang eh. Hindi lang sa inyo ganyan yan. Everywhere it's like that. Ang tatapang nila.
Totoo, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat po. Miss Anne, you have our support.
Thank you so much, Senate Chair, everyone who was part of the committee.
Okay.
Meron pa po tayong kasunod dito.
Sino? May presentation ka pa?
Opo, pero mabilis na lang po to. So,
Sige, go ahead.
Ito po yung nabanggit ni Secretary Simatu earlier this year in February. We also encountered the quarry interest. I think this was sufficiently explored earlier by the committee. And we're grateful actually for Secretary Simatu for personally coming on site and seeing to it na matanggal po yung barbed wires and to also reveal that there are actually MPSAs in the area. We didn't know about it until he finally raised it. We weren't aware of it until he brought it to light. And of course, there are also other challenges, but they're not quite like the two others who are really the large-scale, almost syndicated-like occupation of forest land. So we have logging activities. Ito pong makikita ninyo dito, nangyari po to doon sa muntik nang i-establish na outpost ng Green Atom. So sila rin po siguro most likely ang nagputol ng mga to.
Sayang yung puno, ang lalaki.
Okay.
Of course, continuous kaingin is still happening in the area. That's why it's very important that there are effective patrols.
No, we'll do an alternative livelihood. If you do you have that, because I can donate yan parang I can identify do you have bamboos there? We can identify a bamboo processing do you have bamboos there which you can process? Kasi better ang bamboo, hindi pinuputol, yun lang poles yung hindi pinuputol. Okay, what else? Grazing animal. Everywhere may ganyan.
Also impact the survival rates of our seedlings. So if we had anything to learn from the last 20 years, it's number one, restoration is less about planting trees and really more about protecting the land where trees will grow. Before anything else, land conservation has to be pursued. We have to put attention in protecting the habitat of the life that exists in it. And if we don't pursue that, then all the tree planting that we're doing will be all for nothing and magiging magastos lang.
Itatanim mo, masisira kasi may mga naggala. Dapat ikulong yun. Meron lang silang area na allowed.
Actually, when we're talking about
sabihin mo kay Dexter, magbakod at ikulong doon.
assisted natural regeneration is yun po actually yung pinaka cost effective of it all, no? Because once we're able to protect the land, nature can actually in some instances be able to regenerate on its own. That is the first step of forest restoration, the most cost effective of it all. We can't skip that and jump to reforestation. Kailangan they come hand in hand. Learning number two, guns, goons, and gold is the law of the jungle even up to now, even in the 21st century. Environmental crimes such as illegal logging, illegal occupation are unfortunately still seen as secondary crimes. If I may be candid, there have been times na naglalapit kami ng environmental crimes when it comes to logging, and well, unless it's violence, it's not urgent. Parang ganun po yung nagiging dating minsan. Learning number three, groups are willing to join in the reforestation efforts for the watershed but can't seem to find free land to work on. Kasi nga po parang dinivide-divide na po yata at pinagkaloob. So minsan hindi po yan magre-reflect in the land rights and the surveys that you will see. But on the ground, you will know and you will see na meron talagang mga tao, meron mga struktura na gumagalaw sa mga lugar na yun. And if we may also give a few suggestions to the Senate Chair, for the Upper Marikina watershed rehabilitation, it could be possible to form a multi-sectoral rehabilitation coalition that will strengthen and support governance, reforest half of the watershed. This is what we're trying to aim for. And we'll basically have three pillars and a legislative oversight. Pwede po natin kung i-explore. We can, and these will be focusing on enforcement. We can see that this is one of the key problems. Systemic restoration and reforestation that's built on science. There are actually lots of NGOs who are willing to do this. And research and policy and fact-finding po, no? When it comes to the realities of the status of our watershed on the ground. Second, we need to focus on improving our ground level presence and enforcement capacity. We can be talking about these all the time, pero iba po kasi kung nandun kayo mismo sa gitna ng kagubatan, makikita ninyo kung gaano po kalaking threat sa tao yung pagkakaroon ng mga armed guards kagaya nito at bakit mahalaga na matanggal na po sila. Third is to track and closely and post reports of environmental violations po, no? So, particularly, we would want to be able to look at the actual output and outcomes, such as eviction of the land grabbers and illegal occupants. Which ones are, what's the status? Which ones are gained back? Which ones are just on a yearly basis? What about the cases filed? The removal, the actual output, such as simple as ilan na ba yung mga natanggal na structures, diba? Tsaka ilan na po ba yung mga grazing animals, for instance, that were removed there. All of these really have very clear relationships to how well protection is done on the ground.
Okay.
And ito na rin po, medyo nabanggit nyo na rin po ito kanina, ito po yung mga immediate help po sana that we need in Masungi. First would be the removal of the land grabbing entities who still threaten the work that we do, who still threaten our lives on the ground. The formal cancellation po, no, of the quarry permit that threaten the long-term conservation effort that we do. Nabanggit po kanina ni Secretary Simatu na nagkaroon na po tayo ng suspension order. We're grateful for DNR for this progress. I hope that we don't forget that they actually deserve cancellation not just suspension because of the Upper Marikina watershed issue, no? Because it's already proven that they really shouldn't be here to begin with. Maybe have they caused the floods or not? And last but not the least is to assign a passionate counterpart project manager that we can coordinate with in making sure that this project of ours becomes a success and that this becomes a stepping point po, Madam Chair, for the greater rehabilitation of the Upper Marikina.
Okay. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po.
Okay. So with that, can you give us a copy of your report? Parang hard copy of your report so we can remember everything. Okay. And if there are there any more presentation from the NGOs aside from Masungi Geo Reserve?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just a quick note dun sa isang recommendation ni Ms. Ann about the formation of a multisectoral Upper Marikina Watershed Rehabilitation Coalition. Well, nandito si former Gov. Junjun and maybe other Rizal stakeholders. So maybe yung presentation ni na Ms. Ann could serve as an open invitation sa mga gustong sumali po sa kanila sa ganyang recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I think every protected area is right now forming management team composed of local government and DNR as well as NGOs. Diba? I remember in our Las Piñas, Parañaque Wetland Park, we have a management team also composed of the local government, the DNR, and then the NGO. So maybe we can do that also for the Upper Marikina watershed. Okay, so it's standard, I think. So that's why I guess we have to change the model, Secretary Simato, that instead of the National Greening Program, it's taking care of the 107 legislated protected area in the Philippines. There are 107. Legislated area. The 13 were legislated individually, but the 94, they were legislated together in the expanded NIPAS bill of 2018. So maybe you have a list of that, and maybe instead of greening everything, we first take care of our protected area, not only in greening, but also in protecting from those who are destroying our protected area. So maybe with the one you said that it should be legislated, we can look at that, and maybe next year your budget for national greening will be different. It's greening more of greening and managing our protected areas. Baka mas popular yun sa mga legislator nang hindi ikakat ang budget mo. Every year yun ang nakikita nilang ikakat yung iyong greening program Pero kung ganito ang approach na every protected area has a management and then doon natin dadalhin ang pera natin, baka it's better. Mas nakikita. And then I won't have a hard time defending the budget of the National Greening Program. Kasi very unpopular sa kanila yan palaging kinakat nila yan And wala akong reason na hindi, kasabi nila, wala naman daw nangyayari. Okay? So, without any more presentation coming from the civil society, maybe we can temporarily suspend this hearing. Yes.
May nakikita po ako sa chat galing kay Mary Cristeri Baleva. Nagtatanong kung pwede silang mag-present. I think
nasaan sila? Wala kasi.
ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. Opo.
The one from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity.
Yes,
okay, we recognize them. Okay. We recognize Dr. Mary Cristeri Baleva of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, distinguished senators, Secretary Roy Simatu, esteemed representatives from the DNR, LGUs and resource persons, ladies and gentlemen. The ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or the ACB, thanks the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change for its invitation to this inquiry in aid of legislation on the causes of the flooding in Cagayan Province, in Metro Manila, in nearby provinces, in the aftermath of Typhoon Ulysses. I'm Chris Baleva, the External Relations and Policy Specialist of the ACB. Please allow me to read the following statement on behalf of the ACB's Executive Director, Dr. Teresa Mundita Lim, who, despite wanting to join this inquiry, is unable to do so because the ACB is concurrently co-hosting a webinar on business and biodiversity with Malaysia. Executive Director Lim sends her apologies. The ACB is an intergovernmental organization created through an establishment agreement signed and ratified by all the 10 ASEAN member states. Currently, it is the only ASEAN center that is being hosted by the Philippines. Since its creation 15 years ago, the ACB has been facilitating cooperation on the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity in the ASEAN region, as well as the fair and equitable access to its benefits. The ACB also serves as a secretariat of a flagship initiative of the ASEAN Heritage Parks Program, which recognizes protected areas based on their ecological completeness, representativeness, naturalness, and high conservation importance. To date, the region has recognized 49 AHPs, 9 of which are in the Philippines. The ASEAN's work on the AHP program provides significant insights and lessons learned, not only from the conservation of protected areas, but also on their crucial role in disaster risk reduction and management. Protected areas are our sanctuaries in the face of disasters, the impacts of climate change, and even pandemics caused by zoonoses. An example of these protected areas is the Sierra Madre mountain range. Although not yet an ASEAN Heritage Park, it stretches from Cagayan Province in the north to Quezon Province in the south and encompasses at least 25 protected areas, including the northern Sierra Madre Natural Park, one of the largest in the country and one of its 10 priority protected areas, as well as key biodiversity areas. Not only do its mountains serve as Luzon's buffers from the harsh winds of typhoons that come from the Pacific Ocean, but its ecosystems, from wetlands like mangroves and freshwater lakes to grasslands, unique pygmy forests, and dipterocarp forest areas, could also regulate the surge of large amounts of rainwater that cause flooding. These ecosystems likewise serve as carbon sinks that mitigate the impacts of climate change. The Sierra Madre mountain range is Luzon's first line of defense against typhoons and flooding, the habitat to flora and fauna both known and yet to be discovered, and home to our indigenous peoples. For as long as its ecosystems are healthy and thriving, through a whole of society approach to integrated planning and implementation among national government agencies, LGUs, the protected area management boards, and emphasizes that voluntary guidelines are intended for parties and other governments, for regional authorities or international agencies appropriate in development and implementation of their impact assessment instruments and procedures to stakeholders, as well as taking into account biodiversity conservations in the environment impact assessment process, development interventions, and national disaster risk reduction and management strategies. The Sierra Madre mountain range and other protected areas can once again contribute as nature-based solutions to natural and anthropogenic natural disasters, climate change, and zoonotic diseases. Next year, the ASEAN is poised to launch the ASEAN Green Initiative, which aims to have 10 million trees planted across the region in 10 years. It seeks to complement reforestation and restoration projects in the ASEAN member states, including that of the National Greening Program of the Philippines, and is consistent with the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. As always, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity is ready to support the Philippines and all ASEAN member states in promoting and mainstreaming biodiversity as part of their efforts to prevent calamities and address and reduce their impacts. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of the distinguished guests.
Thank you, Dr. Mary Cristery Baleva. I just want to request you to give us your presentation, the hard copy of your presentation, and to give me the list of the 9 protected areas in the Philippines recognized by the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. You chose 9. Which are the 9?
One of them is Tubataha Natural Park,
Yes.
Mount Makiling, which is where our headquarters are. Mount
else?
Kitanglad, Mount Iglit Bako.
Where is the Iglit Bako? What else?
It's in Mindoro, Madam Chair. I am checking our other.
Can you give us a list of these protected areas so we will know if they are legislated or not? Kasi some protected areas are legislated and some are recognized by a presidential decree or both, or some are not even recognized. So I just want to have the list of the 9 you have requested, you have recognized in ASEAN biodiversity.
Yes, we will do that, Madam Chair.
And give us a hard copy of your presentation to submit to the committee, a hard copy of your presentation. So I
We
guess
will do that, Madam Chair.
I guess we are ready to wind up our hearing. And this is just to suspend. Maybe we can call another hearing to organize our thoughts about many things we have learned today. Yes, Senator Risa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before the chair suspends, I just like to put on record the questions that I would still want to ask the DNR. I'll submit them to the chair in writing and request for their response in writing on the status of the case involving Green Atom, Rublu Corporation, on any criminal prosecutions under the provisions of the NIPAS Act in the Upper Marikina Water Basin, on the National Greening Program, and on the key finding. Yes, Madam Chair.
I think there are protected areas where there are really what do you call this, private ownership. Like for example,
which is problematic. Yes.
the whole island of Siargao is a protected area, but we know that there are many private individuals owning properties in the Siargao. So it's more of how they want the whole island protected, but private ownership is allowed. Just like this Upper Marikina watershed, it was legislated in 2018. So those other people have title to some portions of the Marikina watershed protected areas before 2018 or before 2011 when it was declared a protected area by a presidential decree. It's fortunate for other protected areas that they don't have ownership. Just like our Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, which is a legislated protected area, it's owned by the government, PRA. So, naman PRA is a government corporation. So they intend to sell it. So we're now working on a presidential decree wherein they will turn it over to DNR because it's a protected area. So there are some problems like that. It's different.
That have to be resolved.
It's different for the 107 legislated protected areas. So I guess Marikina will have that problem also, and even the Sierra Madre will have that problem also. But what is important is that they are not doing things to destroy. Maybe they own it, but they are not destroying it. There are limitations to the things they can do in a protected area. They're not supposed to destroy a protected area. So there is limitation.
And at least, Madam Chair, they would have the support of our committee in resolving these issues. The last couple of questions I just like to put on record, Madam Chair, on a key finding of the COA report, that the prioritization of the watersheds was not met. And I also would have asked on the current ratio of forest guard to forest hectares in the Philippines. Lastly na lang siguro, Madam Chair, nahingin ko ng
You better write, put it in writing. So
I will do so, Madam Chair.
they will know what to answer. I think they have forgotten also. Okay.
Perhaps, Madam Chair. But also, for just last question for today, Madam Chair, if Secretary Simatu could
I think he left
reply.
already.
As he left, or anyone from the DN. Okay, then I'll just put it on record, Madam Chair, for anyone.
Yeah. And put it in writing.
To
We
answer.
will ask them to answer. Yes.
Opo. And
What is her last question?
more of a philosophical question, pero tingin ko importante. And pinakita to dun sa gulat natin kanina, dun sa statement nila about the Marikina watershed and development. So does the DNR think that their primary mandate of protection and conservation is somehow sacrificed by other concerns such as trade and economic development? I note, for example, Madam Chair, that the Rizal Penro said that we will lack quarry materials if the Rizal government suspends quarries. The same Penro who said that there's no human activity in the watershed. And like the Chair, I could imagine that coming from DPWH in general or MGB in particular, but it's really off-putting to hear it from a Penro, Madam Chair.
That has always been my lesson to them, that never make statements that would parang gina-justify nyo to destroy an environmental work, di ba? Palagi ko sinasabi, it's all right for us to hear from the other department who are not in charge of environmental protection, but from the DNR, they should not say that. It's
Exactly,
not.
Madam Chair.
Oh yeah. It's they're not. I have been telling them that never say something like that, because it's not your work. Your work is to protect the environment. They're not supposed to take care of construction or take care of the businessman, because that is not environmental.
Opo, DTI pa siguro.
Yun nga, sabi ko nga, yung DTI, yung DPWH, baka pa, pero hindi sila pwede nagsasalita ng gano'n. Nalilimutan nila yun in an effort to justify what they have failed to do. But I always tell them that they should not do that.
And very last na lang po, Madam Chair, from me during this hearing, yung pinakita pong listahan ni Sexy Matu kanina, sabi po ng ilang advocates na nakakita, baka yun po ay list ng operational quarries pa. So just to reiterate, Madam Chair, that through the Chair, we request a copy of the formal cancellation of the two specific MPSAs, yung 142-99-IVA ng Rapid City at yung 112-98-IVA ng Quarry Rock. Maraming salamat po, Madam Chair.
And ilagay mo rin dyan sa question mo yung mga binigyan nila ng clearance na hindi pa nag-ooperate. Kasi
Yes, Madam Chair.
mag-ooperate din yun in the future. So, state them all in your list para maliwanagan din natin. Ha? Okay.
Salamat, Madam Chair.
I think we have another presentation from the Society of Filipino Foresters. Yes, you can proceed now to make your presentation. Mr. Forester Tommy Valdez. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat sa opportunity that you allowed us to join this hearing. Sa ating mga colleagues sa DNR, sa ating lahat ng members ng committee, kami po ay naniniwala sa forestry na ang problema na naging ang baha na naging problema sa Isabela at saka sa Cagayan at even in Marikina could have never been that bad kung maganda pa yung forest natin. Unfortunately, talagang kalbong-kalbo na. And sinusuportahan namin yung DNR na dapat magkaroon kaagad ng restoration programs ng lahat ng ating watersheds, not only Cagayan, Isabela, and Marikina, but all the critical watershed areas in the Philippines. I think there are about 148 of them. Nararapat po na magkaroon tayo ng integrated solution sa ating problema, at isa sa permanenting solution na nakikita namin ay yung immediate enactment ng sustainable forest management na, Madam Chair, na ngayon ay nasa Congress at I think in the Senate. Meron pong na-file si Senator Pia Cayetano in July 2016, and noong August 2020, meron din pong na-file si Senator Bong Revilla. So yun po ang nakikita namin na pangmatagalang solusyon sa ating problema sa ating
What is the name of the bill?
Sustainable Forest Management Bill, Madam Chair.
Sustainable
Forest Management.
Forest Management
Bill.
Bill of Senator Cayetano and Senator Revilla.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay.
Yun lang po. Maraming salamat.
Can you give me a copy of your comment so that we will not forget? Para ma-follow up natin, ha? Okay. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Society of Filipino Foresters. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Maraming salamat.
Okay. Thank you very much. I guess we can temporarily suspend our hearing. I wish to thank our senators who attended this public inquiry, Senator Binay, Senator Risa, and Senator Aimee,
Thank you,
our
Chair.
resource persons, the NGOs, and the local government and guests who have shared valuable information and views. We are so much committed to help in providing green infrastructure solution that will complement and work hand in hand with the other flood control initiatives such as the gray infrastructure solution being espoused by the DPWH, as well as the collective initiative by various local government units where communities exposed to hazards belong. But after this hearing, I would like DNR to submit to us a plan for the protected areas, especially Sierra Madre protected area and the Upper Marikina Watershed protected area, which we can share to everyone, especially the LGUs and the NGOs and the senators, so that we will have an idea of what the project would be. And of course, we will like to see how they will revise the National Greening Program with emphasis on those 107 legislated protected areas. And of course, we want them to give us a hard copy presentation of the DNR, the Masungi Geo Reserve, the Asian Center for Biodiversity, and the presentation of the Society of Filipino Foresters. In the meantime, we are suspending this meeting. Thank you for attending and magandang hapon sa inyo lahat. We also want to thank meeting, but I guess these people are having a hard time answering our questions, so we decided to stay.